KF5 IVJ, this is KF5 Jerry.
This is the W5FC repeater, PL110.9.
The person you are looking for ran away, KF5 IVJ.
I thought as much. So, it worked on Telnet. Now, how do I get it to go over RF?
KF5 Bill.
Hello, Bill. Come on in.
Hey, Melissa, I missed the TechNet time when you asked that question. I just sent you an email with some really good instructions on how I did the W5FC WinLink system as well for the 991A. So maybe look at that, and if you get really confused, you can always ask some more questions.
Oh, I see it. Okay. Well, IVJ, go back and get some ice cream. Never mind. I'll go to school before I ask any more dumb questions. All right, thank you. Appreciate that. KF5 ZBL and KF5 IVJ. This KI. Right, just a lot of IET phonetics. Okay, I'm gonna go read. KF5. Yeah, my call sign. KI5 GRH on the side, clear or something. Reading.
It's so easy to set that up for FT8 as well. Hey, Bill, did you were you using the sound modem as the program and all that?
Yep, sure was, because, I mean, it's just a computer and the radio. That's all you need, and a USB cable. So, yeah, why not make it simple? So yeah, that's what I did. And sent her all the instructions on how to do that exact thing. So, and step by step, what to turn on, what to turn off, and all that kind of good stuff. So, hopefully it works. KF5 is the deal.
Yep, I got a PDF of the same documents that I've uploaded to our club space on Camp Club Online, I think, because I know quite a few people have the 991s. I've got the original, and quite a few have the originals as well. But I've been seeing the 991As are flying off the shelves.
Roger. Well, you know, it is Shack in the Box kind of thing, so that's a good thing. And, you know, has the built-in sound card, so why not utilize it if you can, and all that kind of good stuff. So, yeah, you know, simplicity is at its best. KF5 ZBL.
Yep, I've made about 40 contacts today alone on FT8 with the 991, and it's just simple. It works. So it makes sense to use it. So we'll catch you guys later. KF5 IVJ.
KF5 IVJ, KF5 ZBL will let Avery know that the W5SC-10 antenna grew about 15 feet in the air. So top of that antenna is probably about 40 feet right now. So I know that several people who have not been able to hit it have been able to hit it today. So if you think that you weren't able to hit it before, you might want to try again. KF5 ZBL, clear.
And what does WSJT do again? Cat5 GRH.
WSJTX is FT8, FT4. It's for HF or 2 meter. There are some people doing 2 meter, 6 meter, 10 meter, all the way to 160. And it is it's just a computer-based, you know, contact generator. It's very very forgiving of the current conditions, propagation conditions, and you can make several contacts, depending on which mode you use. FT4 is you make one contact every 30 seconds around there, 30, 45 seconds. And then the FT8 is right around 45 seconds to a minute. So you can sit there and just make HF contacts all over the place. KFI is the deal.
Okay. Well, I have that on my computer now. Interesting. Okay. Back to school. Cat 5 GRH.
I just sent you the link to the website that I used to set up the 991 for FT8. It's very simple. It walks you through all the different settings. And I just upped to California using WSJT.
All right. Well, I'll read that one too. Thank you very much. KI5 GRH. Gonna go read.
KF5 IBJ.
Mr. Chairman, I need to make myself very clear. If we uplink now, Skynet will be in control of your military.
But you'll be in control of Skynet, right?
That is correct, sir.
Skynet.
Oh, I miss the 5 tones, don't you? We're going to the repeater site tomorrow. Maybe I can convince our technical officer to put the tones back in. This is KE5ICX. Does anybody need to use the repeater before we begin tonight's Skynet? This is Kilo Echo 5, India Charlie X-Ray. My name is Tom. I'll be your net control for this session of the DARC Skynet. Skynet is a weekly net called every Saturday night at 9 p.m. concerning the subject of astronomy. Our purposes are to help amateurs become more familiar with the nighttime and daytime sky, astronomy, and space in general. This net is open to all amateurs interested in this topic, and we encourage your participation, comments, and suggestions for this net. Stations with priority or emergency traffic may enter the net at any time by using the pro sign break very enthusiastically and your call signs. Is there any emergency or priority traffic? Please come now. This is a directed net, so please do not transmit without direction from net control. That would be me this evening, and stations are reminded to ID at the end of your transmissions. This weekly net operates on this frequency, which, in case you hadn't guessed, is 146.880 megahertz with a PL tone of 110.9. Check-ins via Echolink are also possible using the W5FC-R station ID or the infamous node 37247. Tonight's topics, astronomy charts, pictures, and live audio-video links are available online. Go to w5fc.org right now for the complete list, and remember to tell others about this popular net. I am also happy to report that the YouTube channel's chat is operational again due to an obscure rule change. No, I didn't read the 14-page terms of service agreement where chat is disabled if streaming content is, quote, made for children. Something you might not be aware of if you too stream live on YouTube. YouTube, get it? Anyways, all amateur operators are welcome. You need not be a member of any amateur radio club to participate. This net is 90 minutes long and is structured in several parts. They are general announcements, Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas events where and when you can look through a telescope, which may be not until 2021, National Space Society events, discussion topic of the evening, Was Up, space exploration and space history, Constellation of the week, space launches this week and maybe beyond, recent astronomical discoveries, visible satellite passages over the next couple of days, astronomical Q&A if we have time, and a 73 round. So let's go ahead and start with check-ins. I'll take low-power short-time check-ins. If you're one of those, please come with your call sign phonetically, your name, where you're transmitting from. Let me know if you're low-power short-time, or both. Okay, I will take that as no low power short time. So let's go to general check-ins. Join us now with your call sign, phonetically your name, where you're transmitting from.
November 5, Bravo, Bravo. Bill in Irving.
Kilo Golf 5, Foxtrot, Papa November. Guy in Arlington.
Kilo India 5, Golf Romeo Hotel, Melissa in Dallas. Kilo Golf 5, Oscar Mike Romeo, Marcia in Dallas.
Alpha 5, Alpha Hotel, Robert and Richards.
WB5OZL, Brendan DeSoto.
Kilo Golf 5, Bravo Zoo Whiskey, Bravo, J. Near Weatherford, sorry.
Okay. Let's hold up for a second here. I can't write that fast. Let me go ahead and get the check-ins I've got, and then I'll continue the check-ins. We have to slow it down a little bit. Tom can't write that fast. So let me go ahead and give you what I got. I've got N5BB, that's Bill in Irving. KG5FPN, that's Guy in Arlington. Welcome. K5GRH, that's Melissa in Dallas, I think. And then Marcia, I think it's Kilo India 5, OMR, Oscar Mike Romeo, Marcia, and I don't know your location. Please correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, it's Kilo Golf
5 Oscar Mike Romeo Marcia in Dallas.
Thank you very much. I've got you. Kilo Golf 5 Oscar Mike Romeo. That's Marcia in Dallas. I got AA5AH Robert in Richardson. I've got WB5OZL. That's Miss Brenda. She is in DeSoto, I believe. And I got KG5BZWJ near Weatherford on RF this evening. Okay, I'll take additional check-ins. Please come down.
This is Kilo Foxtrot 5 Juliet Hotel Alpha Chaz Mesquite.
Kilo Foxtrot 5 Zulu Bravo Lima, Bill, Farmers Branch.
Kilo Echo 5 Lima X-Ray Yankee out here in Carroll.
Kilo Golf 5 Whiskey Victor Lima, James in Carrollton.
Kilo Bravo 5 Delta Mike, Brian from Roanoke.
K2 OIZ from Roy City.
Kilo 5 Juliet Delta Whiskey John and Coppell.
This is Kilo Golf 5 Alpha Papa Lima, Patrick in Dallas.
All right, that's not too bad. We slowed it down a little bit. I'll need a couple of fills, though. I got KF5JHA Chaz from Mesquite. I think he's imitating the In the Blink of the Eye episode from Star Trek. KF5ZBL, that's Mr. Bill in Farmers Branch. Our Prez, KE5LXY over in Terrell. Can I get your name, please? I should know, but I don't.
KE5LXY, name is Jimmy. Jamaica, India, Mike, India, Echo.
Very good. Thank you, Jimmy. KE5LXY. I've got James, that's KG5WVL in Carrollton. KB5DM, that's Brian in Roanoke. I'll get that right. The next one, I think I got, you're a little over modulating. I think it's Kilo 2 Yankee Zulu over in Roy City. Could I get correction on your call and name, please? Station ending in Yankee Zulu. Please come.
K2OIZ, George, Roy City, Texas.
All right, I've got you. That's Kilo 2, Oscar, India, Zulu. That's George over in Roy City. Did I get that right, George?
That's affirmative.
All right, thank you. I got you in. K5JDW, John in Coppell. He's down in his winter home here in Dallas. And I got KG5APL, that's Patrick, also in Dallas. Although I got, did I say Dallas for John? I meant Coppell. And I got Patrick in Dallas. Okay, additional check-ins. Please come now.
Alpha Foxtrot 5 Tango X-Ray, BJ in Crandall.
All right, I got got one more out of that. AF5TX, that's a BJ in Crandall. He's using his inside voice. Very good, BJ. We got you in. All right, I'm going to move over to Echolink. If you're on Echolink and you've not checked in already, I see a lot of folks over on chat, but there are a few who are not. If you'd like to be recognized, either type in the chat window you'd like to be recognized, or we'll give you extra time and you can go ahead and tell us yourself. Please come now, Echolink only.
T0, Mike Bravo Charlie. This is Shane.
I'm Bethany Bruce James, Missouri.
Hi, Sonia.
This is Kilo 5, Kilo Tango X-Ray, Kelly, and Pettit Jean State Park in Arkansas.
All right, just doing the paperwork there and giving everybody extra time, since actually doing Echolink is additional paperwork. I've got N5 IMS, that's JJ in Carrollton. I've got W0MBC, that's Bethany, #1, and Shane over in Blue Springs. I've got K5KTX, Miss Kelly. She is in Arkansas at the Jean State Park. I'm going to go ahead and I may come back to you, Miss Kelly, find out what you're doing up there, because I have a suspicion it's astronomical related. I could be wrong, but I bet I'm not. Okay, anyone else over, I think, let me look over an Echolink here. He said WGRH. I think, yeah, I got everybody over on Echolink. So let me go ahead and open it up to anyone who would like to check in. Any mode, please come now with your call sign phonetically, your name, and where you're transmitting from.
This is Whiskey number 4, Mike Foxtrot, India, WV4MFI, Ted, Dallas, low power.
Kilo 5, Golf Lima Delta, Randy Rowlett.
All right, I picked up two more. I've got WB4MFI, Ted in Dallas, low power. Ted, you're usually full quieting tonight. You really do sound low power this evening. That's unusual for you. It's the first time I've heard you and I'll put it in quotes, weak. You're usually a strong station, even with low power, so you might want to check into that. I got K5GLD, that's Randy and Rowlett. Anyone else before we begin? Thank you for the orderly check-ins. It's most appreciated. Do we have any general announcements for this evening's net? These can be ham, astronomical, space, or of general interest to licensed hams. Please come now.
AF5TX.
All right, AF5TX. BJ, you got it. Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, this morning at about 5 o'clock, I got a chance to talk to the International Space Station through the repeater that just went up. it was really interesting. Got to talk to all of them. Got most of their call sign and their name, and they said they'd catch you back when we come back around. And I actually got to call them again and talk to them. AF5TX.
Well, very good, BJ. I know it's in a relay mode. It's in a repeater mode right now, and I do have a thing on that later on when we get to the satellite passes. Did you get any of the astronauts? And if you did, maybe who? I know you must have written something down there. Otherwise, it could have been the repeater mode, or it could have been both. I don't know. You tell me. You were the guy making the contact.
Well, actually, what I did was, Tom, is I put my satellite beams together and got it out in my front part of my property and staked it down on the ground, ran the coax up to the, I've got another Kenwood TS2000 and was sitting there playing with it, and I just happened to hit the repeater, and they were talking to me, and I didn't get any of them's names, but they did get my call sign in my name and said that they would make sure that I got to show proof that I had talked to them, and I said, okay. And then the second time they came around, he started calling my call sign again, but there was a whole pile up in there that was trying to talk to him. AF5TX.
All right, thank you, BJ. We'll have more on all of that coming up, but congratulations. Glad you had a chance to talk to space on a radio rather than without a radio. Okay, this is KE5ICX. This is Skynet. Let me go ahead and continue with announcements. I do have in the script that I was going to talk about Joe. I will talk about Joe in a little bit. He has become the featured topic this evening. So I'll go ahead and go to, I'm going to scroll down. I automatically should know. Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas. Is anybody here like to talk about what TAS is doing right now from KE5I6?
KF5JHA.
KF5JHH has, go right ahead, sir, from KE5I6.
Thank you, Tom. The next meeting of the Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas is on September the 25th. That would be a Friday, the fourth Friday of the month. It'll be at 7:30 p.m. It'll be a virtual meeting using Zoom. We won't have a speaker at this meeting. Instead, we'll be having our swap meet. Now, TAS, Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas, usually has a swap meet once a year. But as far as I know, we've never done this virtually. The swap meet is when members bring to the meeting their unwanted, gently used, well, sometimes really used, equipment and sell it. The TAS Club members will receive an email link to the meeting. If you're an active member, you'll get that probably in about a week or so. And hopefully TAS will resume having some face-to-face meetings and maybe some public observing sessions sometime after all this shelters in place is over. And Tom, you might be right. It might not be until the year 2021. Check their website, texasastro.org, for details. Okay, Tom, back to you. KF5JHA.
All right, thank you, Jazz. Most appreciated. I will now, let me look over here. Now we got a few more people. I'll come back on additional check-ins in a minute. Let's move over to the National Space Society of Dallas. So that would be Bill, N5BB. You're the guy that usually does this, so I'm going to call on you. So if you're ready, go ahead. Tell us what National Space Society is doing here in Dallas from KE5I6.
Thank you, Tom. This is N5BB. You got the name wrong. It's the National Space Society of North Texas. More than just Dallas. So North Texas. So if you got it on the script wrong, you need to fix it. I am the membership director of the National Space Society of North Texas. If you have any interest in joining or visiting, joining our group or visiting our meetings, you can reach me at n5bb@arrl.net. We normally have a meeting on the second Sunday of every month, which would be tomorrow. But of course, we're not doing in-person meetings now because of COVID. So we'll have a virtual WebEx meeting. And our topic tomorrow is going to be, let me read the exact name here, Exploring Steam Explosions on Mars, which might be a little bit interesting to some people. Our speaker is Caitlin Stacy, who has been both at NASA JPL, and she got degrees from University UT Dallas, and some other locations. Actually, she did some postgraduate work at UT Dallas, I believe. I think that's right. Anyway, the thing is, she's going to talk about some features on Mars that have been discovered via our Mars Explorer spacecraft, different spacecraft that have been exploring Mars recently. And some of this involves steam explosions. So, if you're not a National Space Society member, and you would like to listen to that, send me an email tonight or tomorrow morning at n5bb@arrl.net. I'll be glad to send you the WebEx link. Our meeting starts at 4 p.m. tomorrow, 4 p.m. Central Time. Okay, what else is going on with National Space Society? Here's some really quick news items. Roll through these. So NASA astronaut Jeanette Epps will be joining the ISS crew. This will be on the first operational flight of Boeing's CST-100 Starliner spacecraft. So this is expected to launch sometime in 2021. You know how these things go. It's already been delayed several times, so hopefully it'll make it into space next year. And Jeanette Epps will then be the first black woman to live and work in space for an extended period of time. So again, that's on the Boeing CST-100 Starliner spacecraft, first mission to the ISS. Or I should say first manned or woman, the first human mission to the ISS. So that's coming up here next year, and was just announced. The NASA Space Launch System, I'll read this title from space.com. NASA Mega Rocket Blast Past Cost Estimates. So NASA's new Space Launch System is way over budget. And that's the bottom line of all this. Calculating exactly how far over budget is something that is difficult because of all the different changes over time. But it's way over budget. So it looks like it's probably exceeded the 30% over budget number that requires notification of Congress. And they're probably not going to make any changes to SLS because of this. So Congress is just going to probably have to come up with some more money, which may be difficult, but with COVID and the economy tanking and everything. Some more news. Dream Chaser from Sierra Nevada is getting closer to being ready to launch. This is a small, it's like a small space shuttle, and it was going to be manned, but it lost, Sierra Nevada wasn't able to get NASA to use it for their manned programs. So instead, they've revised the Dream Chaser to be a unmanned supply vehicle. So it would fly up on a rocket to the ISS. They would then, put supplies on and off of it, and then it would come back and land like the space shuttle did. It would land with wings on a runway. So Sierra Nevada is working on that, and they have just gotten the wings made, and they're checking everything out in Louisville, Colorado. It's spelled differently than Louisville, Texas. It's spelled like Louisville, but it's pronounced Louisville, Colorado. It's a suburb of Denver, between Denver and Boulder. So that's the Dream Chaser. Next news item is there's some questions about whether SpaceX is going to put a luxury theme resort at their South Texas Boca Chica launch site. That's where they're planning on testing and launching their starships, which eventually would, according to Musk, go to Mars. And in 2014 is when they plan to be launching some of these ships. And it looks like they may be preparing to build a luxury resort right next to it, the launch site, so that people could be at the luxury resort and watch the launch. Another thing, the Perseverance rover is going to be carrying the first spacesuit materials for future missions to Mars. So let me explain this. NASA's working on new spacesuit designs to be used on the Moon and on Mars. If we're going to have long-term humans on the Moon and on Mars, it's going to take new spacesuit designs. So they're testing the materials. So the best way of testing the materials is to send them to Mars and put them out there in the Martian environment and see how they react. So they're doing that. So a scientist whose name is Amy Ross at NASA's Johnson Spacecraft Center in Houston is developing these and involved with them. The National Space Society North Texas chapter has asked her to be our speaker at our next meeting, our October meeting. And I'm still waiting for answers from the Johnson Spacecraft Center, the NASA Speaker Bureau. You think bureaucracy is bad, add that to the COVID-19 delays, and the bureaucracy goes really, really slow. One last news item. Blue Origin team has delivered their lunar lander mock-up to the Johnson Spacecraft Space Center in Houston. Lots of going on with manned spacecraft. This is N5BB. Thank you, Tom.
Thank you, Bill. And this is KE5I6 and your net control for tonight's Skynet. I do have a couple of announcements. One is, BJ touched upon it, the ISS is now with 2-meter, 440 megahertz repeater on board. It just takes and relays the signal back down to Earth. Probably have about 5 states with a footprint on 2 meters. The initial operation of the new radio system is in FM crossband repeater mode using an uplink frequency of 145.990 megahertz with an access tone of, or private line tone, CTC SS of 67 hertz. with a downlink frequency of 437.800 megahertz. System activation was first observed on September 2nd at 1:02 UTC time. Special operations will continue to be announced. Now, one thing I can tell you is you don't need any special gear. The minimum is a dual band HT. While transmit may be problematical, but not impossible, receiving is incredibly easy. You'll hear a crystal clear signal even on a rubber duck antenna. So when you see the brilliant -3 magnitude ISS fly overhead, and I've got that information with me, don't be a passive observer. Make a contact, or at least listen to hear how incredibly easy this really is. Additional information as well as the URL giving you the specifics on this is available on the AMSAT site, or just go to w5fc.org and check the notes for this net. Should be at the very top of the list, and you will find the hot link for AMSAT for that. It is the AMSAT UK.org that is reporting this, but as we all know, you don't have to be in England to hear the International Space Station. Now we have a couple of new nets here on the DARC repeater, on the 88 repeater, by the way, and that is we've got the new, you see here, I've got new notes. So the Dallas AMSAT Net East, Dallas-Fort Worth, is every Tuesday. I believe it's at 8 p.m. on this repeater. I missed it because I forgot about it this past Tuesday, but it's on this frequency with a PL tone of 110.9er. On Tuesdays, Tom, N5HYP is net control. All are welcome to check in, except on the first Tuesday of the month, which is the DARC Club meeting night, and he'll be in the meeting. So there's no AMSAT East on that night. We also have the traditional AMSAT Net Dallas-Fort Worth on Wednesday at 9 p.m. on the Arlington repeater at 147.140 megahertz with a PL tone of 110.9er with a positive offset. And then also on Tuesday nights at 8 p.m., yes, it competes with its own net here in Dallas, and that is the AMSAT net out of Houston. You can listen in and be a part of that net on Echolink. This is based out of Houston, Texas, or you can go to the AMSATnet.com website. You'll find a hot link there to listen in. Done this for years. They are very informative net as well. Also, don't forget, also we have the Lunch Bunch net. That's at 12 noon every day, Monday through Friday. I've heard some activity today on Saturday, so I think folks just kind of just wander in on the weekends as well. So go ahead and take a listen to that. I would like to remind you that tomorrow, the Dallas repeater, this repeater, will be down from about 8:30 until 12 noon. We have to do some antenna work at the site. You may have noticed it was a little noisy during high winds. There's a reason for that. We're going to go fix that. We'll probably take pictures and report on all of that. But we have to do some antenna fixing. So keep that in mind. And I won't go into the details, but every Monday night at 7 o'clock, the DARC has a net of some sort, and you are invited to check in on that net. Now, I do have tonight's Afterglow movie info. Everybody listening? Pencils poised and ready to take notes. Here is tonight's Afterglow movie at 10:30 p.m. The captain of the 757-200 yawned and looked at his watch. The Washington, D.C. to London flight was a long one, especially for this narrow-body aircraft. But that's International Airlines for you. The captain spoke. Welcome aboard. This is your... We'd like to turn your attention to the video monitors as we have a double feature selection for movies tonight. The Final Countdown with Kirk Douglas, and an episode from the classic Twilight Zone, The Odyssey of Flight 33. And right on cue, as though it had been listening, a giant wormhole appeared in front of the jet. Captain Strong took note of the clocks running backwards and added this snippet. Also, we have a strong tailwind and associated wormhole, meaning we'll be arriving in London about 75 years early. Man, clocking his time would be a real issue, Strong thought. But first, he has to deal with the Messerschmitt ME-262 at 12 o'clock high. He thought to himself, 12 o'clock high, I love that TV show. The first missile hit. Join us for the direct-to-video craptacular Flight World War II from 2017, tonight at 10:30 p.m. You'll find it on YouTube. You can still see it, but you'll miss our net. You can keep up with all the DARC events, nets, and activities by going to the very active club website, w5fc.org. You'll get all the information. And don't forget, all of the hot links and video stuff is there for tonight's net that you're participating in right now. And let's see here. Let me go to the tops. I think Kelly is back. K5KTX. Miss Kelly, I just wanted to ask you, what you doing in the state park this weekend? Are you doing any star observing from KE5I6?
K5KTX, and no, I got here Wednesday afternoon, just taking a few days of vacation, and my campsite is completely covered by a canopy of pine trees, so I can only see about 1 or 2 stars anyway. So, no, just taking some time out away from the job and everything else, and also getting some more practice in with the new travel trailer. This is the furthest that I've taken it. So, anyway, that's it. No stargazing for me. It's been cloudy, too. K5KTX.
All right, Miss Kelly. Well, no harm, no foul. I just thought I'd ask. It's just a shot in the dark to see if you were doing that. I know you travel everywhere and you do a lot of interesting things, so it's always fun to check in with you. And glad you got internet somehow and you're able to contact us here remotely. I may call on you a little later, but in any case, let's go ahead and get started a little bit. I think I've got everybody. Let me go ahead and ask any additional check-ins before we begin. Anyone else who'd like to check in, please come now with your call sign, name, where you're transmitting from.
Kilo 5 Alpha November Papa, Alan in Dallas.
Kilo Echo 5 Echo November, Eric in Plano.
Kilo Delta 5 Foxtrot Papa Charlie, Princeton, November 7 Papa November Foxtrot, Chad in Gulf Springs.
Bill with Whiskey.
November Tango 5, Tango Mike, Tony in Dallas.
This is Whiskey 5 Golf Uniform Sierra, Gus for Northeast Dallas.
So Golf 5, Zulu Mike Golf, Joe in Arlington.
Check-ins. I'm going to need a couple of fills. Let me go to the top of the list. I got K5ANP, that's Alan in Dallas. I got KE5EN, Echo November Eric, and I couldn't make out your city. Hopefully you got your call right, and where are you transmitting from, your QTH?
Kilo Echo 5 Echo November, QTH is Plano.
Thank you. You have a perfect signal, so got it. I've got Kilo Delta 5 Foxtrot Papa Charlie, I believe, KD5 FPC. Could I get your name and location, please, or correct your call if I'm wrong?
Kilo Delta 5 Foxtrot Papa Charlie. Call sign is correct. Handle here is Cody Charlie Oscar Delta Yankee. QQH is Princeton. Go ahead.
All right. Kilo Delta 5 Foxtrot Papa Charlie. That's Cody over in Princeton. Welcome. You're new on my list. Hope you enjoy the net. I've got N7 PNF. That's Chad. And Chad, where are you located?
Yeah, this is M7 PNF. I am out here in Salt Spring.
I've got you, Chad, in False Springs. I'll have to look that up on the map, but I got you in. NT5TM, Tony in Dallas. Now, there was a call from Mesquite, a Mesquite call. Could you repeat your call sign name? And I'll get you on the list here. All I got was Mesquite. I think there was a double.
This is Kilo Bravo 5 Delta Lima X-Ray. This is Bill in Mesquite.
All right, very good, Bill. I've got you. KB5DLX over in Mesquite. I've got you checked in. W5G, that's Gus in far, far northeast Dallas, or a galaxy far, far away, which is northeast Dallas. KG5ZMG, Joe in Arlington. Anyone else? Boy, I was surprised with that second big round. Anyone else like to check in? Please come down. All right, hearing none. We're up to 31 check-ins. That's pretty good this early in the net. Tonight's topic, I wanted to mention, and this was meant to be an announcement first, and I'll give it now, about Joe Laluma, W1XWX, and my original thing was this. It's heavy heart to announce the passing of Joe Laluma. W1XWX. Joe was active in the early years of this net and has acted as net control, the capacity I'm holding tonight. To even more, he was active inside the Texas Astronomical Society, to which we have a very significant contributions, participations in this net. A couple of things. I believe Joe got his license in 2012 and was immediately married to his newfound passion of amateur radio with his longtime, and added it to his longtime interest in amateur astronomy. That same year, I remember he set up a table at Astronomy Day in Mesquite and was equally at home talking about his two amateur hobbies, all the while with an FM transceiver tuned to this frequency, inviting visitors to try radio, it won't bite you, and handing the microphone over to them, as well as suggesting our net. I think, as we all know, this is a hobby which sees a huge crossover between the love for the sciences, especially astronomy, unbridled curiosity in the natural world, and our enthusiasm for that, and more than just as for this world and the worlds above us. Joe reflected all those traits, and he wasn't afraid to share his enthusiasm with others. Joe was also a bit of a showman and a teacher. Those two qualities and his unrelenting energy provided a long list of technical and advice-based articles online, speeches and meetings that he's attended and conducted. One only has to Google his call sign and see his detailed articles on the technical, social, and even economic advice in maneuvering the ham radio world. But most of you, if you didn't know him personally, do remember him from his Telescope Man YouTube channel. He produced an eminently entertaining segments on astronomy. Oh, and he'd slip in a whole bunch of ham radio stuff for his high potential audience and crossover guinea pigs. Now here's a brief piece from an article he wrote in 2014 called Advice for Beginners on eham.net. He says this, he says, do join a local radio club, or 2 or 3 of them. I belong to 4 radio clubs. Why? First, I feel an obligation to help reimburse the club the operating repeaters that I use on a frequent basis. Also, you'll meet many experienced hams and get to know them. They will help you if you ask with just about anything related to the hobby. Hams are a pretty vocal group when it comes to equipment, reviews, and operating techniques. You'll hear many opinions, and he put that in quotes. Just remember that each experienced ham has probably already tried what you are doing right now. Use their experience as a guide with your station setup, equipment purchases, antenna selections, and operating procedures. Club membership fee is a very small price to pay for immediate access to, and he puts this in capital letters, experience. That's what he thought about us as operators, and he would not only give advice, but he also respected the lifelong experiences that we all have. Joe always had a smile on his face and always a quip or a story which anyone could relate to. You can see many of Joe's editions of Telescope Man. Just Google that name. There's more than a few, and they're dedicated to the 2 hobbies that we all love. Joe was vice president of the Rockwall Amateur Radio Club and the Sabine Valley Radio Club, a member of the DARC, and a member of the K5TIT Texas Interconnect team. He was also president of the Texas Astronomical Society, which I did not know. I picked that up earlier, just before this net. And here's some information for you if you're interested in visitation. This comes from his daughter, who posted this publicly, and she says the following: we will host a rosary and visitation on September 28th at 10 a.m. at the Sparkman Crane Funeral Home on Garland Road in Dallas. Following the service, there will be an interment of his ashes at Sacred Heart Cemetery in Rowlett. If you're planning to attend the visitation, please let me know via messenger, and that's Laura Laluma, Zigger. I'll post this up. It's kind of difficult, but through messenger at Laura Laluma Nofziger. That's Nofziger. We have to keep the total number under 55 per COVID protocol in the chapel, but the service will also be live streamed, so there's an opportunity to participate there. All right, I'm going to read from Joe's obituary. There was this piece. I think you'll find this interesting. I just picked this up and printed it out like an hour before the net this evening. It says here, and this is the part that we really are fascinated about, although he had a very successful career in business and with the McLean Company of Temple, Texas, as a salesman, and his career as an executive vice president. So he moved up quite a bit, quite amazingly, in a grocery warehouses that he helped computerize. Joe was passionate about astronomy, amateur radio operation, and fishing. As his YouTube videos attest, passionate is an understatement. He thoroughly educated himself and loved to pass his knowledge on to others. Joe was the host of the YouTube channel called Telescope Man, where he provided educational videos on amateur radio and telescope operation. His call sign, W1XWX. His signature tagline was, I wish you 73 and clear skies. Remember to keep looking up to see the greatest show on earth right over your head every single night. Joe is an active member of the Dallas chapter of the Texas Astronomical Society, where he served as president and treasurer and a member of the Rockwall Amateur Radio Club. He held many radio technician awards and licensures. to see Joe in his element, check out his YouTube channel and just type in Telescope Man, one word, and you'll find his work. He's survived by his wife, Laura Gimbel Lalumia, his children, Joseph, Alan, Laura Lee, and 4 grandchildren, Kyle, Olin, Hunter, Kyle, Olin, Leon, and Hunter, there we go, and his brothers, Sam and Michael. All right, at this point, I'd like to go ahead and ask, I know we have a pretty good group from Texas Astronomical Society and folks that have met Joe. If anybody has anything they'd like to talk about Joe, I think this would be a good time. If you'd like to contribute, please come now. Maybe an amusing story or something you know about Joe, maybe an interesting little tidbit of something, an interaction with him that was fascinating to you or different or somehow meaningful or memorable. Usually meaningful and memorable go together. Please come now with your call sign. All right, well, I kind of sprung this on you all in this evening. I probably should have given you a little more heads up. Joe was always interesting, and one of the things I did mention, I put it in the thing that I thought was kind of cool about him, is that he was very enthusiastic about amateur radio. He was very enthusiastic about astronomy, and as such, he would always set up his telescopes, invite people over, which is an outreach that if you're into astronomy, you would always do. And if you do field day, amateur radio as well. He liked to marry the two together, and I just love the idea that he would sit you down and lure you in, whichever hobby that you were currently gravitating to. I use that as kind of a pun. He would do a bait and switch with you and tell you a little bit about the other hobby that he was interested in. Now he didn't tell me anything about fishing. That much I don't know, but I guess he was passionate about that. So I think in the end, I think one of the things that's really great about Joe is he shared his enthusiasm with others, and he really cared about people's interest in that. He also had this devilish smile. I don't know what it was about him, but he reminded me of that guy you weren't sure about who did he have some other agenda? Nah, it wasn't. His agenda was he was just enthusiastic and he had fun and he enjoyed life. There was, the other story I wanted to tell was one night when he was doing this net, we'd set up I think a Skype connection. This is when I used to kind of host others on the video, and you could see them. He was at his old house, and his former wife was there, and she had Alzheimer's, and he took care of her. He really took care of her, and he was her primary caretaker. But this evening, when he was on the net Saturday night, we were going through all of our segments. Let me reset. And what was funny about the whole thing is that, and what happens is that nobody can sit for a full 90 minutes without having to get up and walk around and do things, because 90 minutes is a long time on a Saturday night for things to go on. Joe liked a nice little glass of, I believe it was whiskey, a premium bourbon that he had on the table. And he left the table. You did not see this online, but I saw it on the preview channel. And I'm watching, and he leaves the room while another presentation is going on, and I see her sit down at the table where he was doing the net, and she picked up and drank most, if not all of that drink, set it down, and went back and sat down as though nothing happened. Joe came back, and he noticed that his drink was empty, didn't think about it one bit, went back and refilled, and sat down ready for the next segment. But it was pretty darn funny. So I don't know. It's just a fun story. He was willing to try anything, and even some folks would play jokes on him. So I thought that was kind of fun. All right, that's all I had. Anybody else have anything they wanted to say? I'll wait for a few seconds. Go ahead. From KE5I6.
KE5 ICF from Kilo Delta 5, Papa Charlie.
Oh, very good. Let's see. Did I have you checked in? But I'll put you down. KD5F, go ahead.
Kilo Delta 5, Foxtrot, Papa Charlie. I think I chatted with Joe a few times. I don't think I've met anybody from the club, but I think I chatted with Joe a few times, and yeah, he was always a hoot and always seemed to be willing to lend a hand to anybody. And I think he gave me a few pointers on my mobile rig when I was trying to get things sorted out. A few months ago. So yeah, God bless him and his family, and I pray that he meets Jesus, and I pray that God comforts his family in this time of suffering. Kilo Delta 5, Fox Papa Charlie.
Thanks for the comments. You probably did. Joe was pretty much unmistakable on the air, and he, as I mentioned, he did a lot of contributions to very early on when we didn't have a lot of folks presenting back in those days. He took a point lead and helped out and even did NCS. So think about it. I have the links up on w5fc.org. I'll include the memorial service information for you, which I just got here just not long before the beginning of this net. So it's not posted yet, but I will put that information up. This is KE5ICX. I'm your net control for tonight. That was my topic. We're going to go ahead and move on to What's Up? That would be Chaz, KF5JHA. Chaz, the net is yours.
Thank you, Tom. Good evening, everyone. This is Chaz, KF5JHA. My degree is in astrophysics, and I am the astrophysics lab manager at Dallas College on the Brookhaven campus. We do call this segment of Skynet What's Up. I want to take a moment and talk about Joe for just a moment. I knew it was coming up, so that's why I didn't chime in about Joe earlier. But one thing I want to talk about is his laugh. His laugh would fill up a room, and you could hear it echoing up and down a hallway. So he did give a lot of people a lot of happiness and joy just from listening to his laugh. Okay. All right. Slide number 2, Mr. Tom. The moon was at its third quarter on September the 10th. So the current phase of the moon is a waning crescent. The moon will be new on September the 17th. The moon will be at its first quarter on September 23rd, and the moon will be full on October the 1st. Every 29.5 days, we do have a full moon, in other words, once a month. And it should really be called a moonth because we have a full moon every month. On average, every 2.5 years, we'll have 2 full moons in the same calendar month. And we call the second full moon a blue moon. And on October 31st of this year, we'll have our second full moon for the month of October. So the October 31st full moon will be a blue moon. Some people like to call the fourth full moon and a quarter a blue moon, but in that case, December 29th is a full moon, but I don't really recognize that. Yesterday on September the 11th, Neptune was at opposition. You know, all of you missed it. If you're watching the video version, I put up the wrong slide about finding Uranus instead of Neptune, but this week I've got it right. So slide number 3 talks about the Neptune's opposition, which was yesterday. The blue giant planet was at its closest approach to the Earth yesterday. and its face is fully illuminated by the sun. It'll be brighter than any other time during the year, and is visible all night long from basically sun, well, as soon as it gets dark until the twilight starts happening in the morning. This is the best time to view and photograph Neptune. Due to its extreme distance from the Earth, it'll only appear as a tiny blue dot in all but most powerful telescopes. I've only seen Neptune through a telescope a couple of times, and I hope to use my 16-inch Dob to look for it sometime soon. In a couple days, around 5:30 a.m., look toward the east on September the 14th to find the moon and Venus. Venus should remain bright enough to see in the daytime sky. So, after sunrise on September the 14th, yes, during the daytime, use the thin crescent moon as a guide to find Venus just to the south of that crescent moon. So I'm on slide number 5. In the evening sky, as twilight fades on September the 18th, look for the thin crescent moon. That would be in the evening sky. To the lower left of the moon, you may spot the planet Mercury, and to the upper left of Mercury, you could find the star Spica. I don't know why I emphasize the pronunciation of that star. I'm laughing. Oh, slide number 6. Also, September 22nd, September equinox. What? The autumnal equinox. September equinox occurs at 1:31 UTC. The sun will shine directly on the equator, and there will be nearly an equal amounts of daylight and nighttime sky throughout the world. This is the first day of fall in the northern hemisphere and the first day of spring in the southern hemisphere. And on this day, the sun rises directly east and sets directly west everywhere on the Earth. Well, where does the sun rise and set the rest of the year? Well, Kelly, K5KTX, you'll probably appreciate this. Think about birds. Which direction do the birds fly in the winter? They go south, and that's where the sun rises and sets. In the winter, it rises south of east and sets south of west. In the summertime, the birds fly north, and the sun rises and sets north of east and north of west during the summer. And I'm sure the birds are following the sun, and it's not the other way around. Also on September 22nd in the evening sky, just as twilight is fading around 7:45 p.m., look in the southwestern sky for Mercury and Spica. Yep, Spica again. In conjunction, Mercury will be higher and just slightly left of Spica. And this is KF5JJ, and this is Skynet. Slide number 8. At 11:30 p.m. on September the 24th, look for in the southwestern sky for the moon to be just below the planet Jupiter. The fainter Saturn will be just to the upper left of them. Saturn and Jupiter are getting closer and closer to will be in conjunction on December the 20th and 21st, 2020. That's this year. The last great conjunction of Jupiter and Saturn was in the year 2000 on May the 31st. But on December the 20th and 21st, that evening, just as twilight is ending, you can find the two planets so close together that they'll look like one object. And in telescopes, we'll be able to see both planets in the same field of view at the same time. Okay, we have a meteor shower that I want to talk about. And it's actually just passed, but we'll talk about it anyway. On September the 8th and 9th, the September 11th Epsilon Perseid meteor shower happened, and it had about half a dozen meters per hour. I suggest camping at a Texas state park, although Kelly's in a different state park right now, to watch the meteors. For details about meteors and meteor showers, visit the American Meteor Society at amsmeteors.org or the International Meteor Organization at imo.net. Once again, the Texas Astronomical Society will have its meeting next one on September the 25th. If you want details about that and anything else for the Texas Astronomical Society, visit texasastro.org. Now, do any of you out there in Radioland have a question or need a fill on any of the information? Or do you just have a general astronomy question? I don't know everything, but I may have the answer to your question. Come now with a call sign if you have a question.
KE5ICX.
Mr. Tom, NCS. Please come now.
So if I understood this correctly, we'll be able to see Jupiter and Saturn in the same field of view with our telescope. Two questions. One, I think you'll know the answer to both, but let's see. If one is further away from the other, will they both be in focus in my telescope? And if they are in focus in my telescope, what field of view are we talking about? The distance between the two and what, arc seconds? KE5ICX.
Yes, you are correct. They're in the same field of view. They will both be in focus because they're pretty much far away. In fact, even if you had a telescope pointed at the horizon on the Earth, that telephone pole that might be only half a mile away and that water tower that's maybe a mile away, they'd still be in the same focus. So, yeah, Jupiter and Saturn are just quite a bit distance from each other. In fact, Saturn's about twice the distance from us that Jupiter is. And so, in fact, Saturn's about a billion miles away from us. Isn't that interesting? Okay. So, yeah, we'll be able to see them with the naked eye as just a single object in the sky on that evening. So that'll be interesting. Did I answer your questions, Tom?
Well, I think you did. Is there, I'm not sure what it is, the proper eyepiece to use with something like that? A wider field of view or something a little closer, or does it really matter? I've got an old refractor over here that I will probably use for that. So I guess that's it. That would be my second question. KE5ICX.
So an eyepiece to use will vary from telescope to telescope because the field of view would vary depending on the eyepiece you're using and the objective of the telescope. So it's dependent. I would start with a wide field of view, which would be a high number on your eyepiece. If you have a 40 millimeter lens, that might be the best to start with. But you can increase the power and see what kind of magnification you can still use and get both of them in the field of view. What'll be interesting is you can see the planets' moons. So you could see Jupiter's 4 Galilean moons and Saturn's Titan and maybe a few more moons around Saturn as well, all at the same time. That'll be kind of interesting, seeing the planets and their moons. Okay. All right, I just want to welcome the students from Brookhaven College that are listening and watching Skynet tonight. Students, just a reminder, if you want to get stargazing class credit for this, then remember to fill out the form. It actually looks like a test within the next 48 hours and turn it in to get credit. So, as the moon will wane at the first couple of weeks of September, or what it's doing right now, so do these words for this segment of Skynet. Stay safe, keep well, pray for our world. Until next week, keep looking up so you know what's up. KF5JJ, back to net control.
Very good, and thank you, Chaz. And don't wander too far away because you'll be back for the next segment here in a little bit. So next up is Miss Brenda, WB5OZL. She's going to give us space exploration and space history for this week. So Brenda, the net is yours.
Thank you, Tom. This is WB5OZL. Okay, in space exploration, observations suggest a missing ingredient in dark matter theories. Astronomers have discovered there may be a missing ingredient in our cosmic recipe of how dark matter behaves. They have uncovered a discrepancy between the theoretical models of how dark matter should be distributed in galaxy clusters and observations of dark matter screw up on clusters. Dark matter does not emit, absorb, or reflect light. Its presence is only known through its gravitational pull on visible matter in space. Therefore, dark matter remains as elusive as Alice in Wonderland's Cheshire Cat, where you only see its grin in the form of gravity and not the animal itself. One way astronomers can detect dark matter is by measuring how its gravity distorts space, an effect called gravitational lensing. Researchers found that small-scale concentrations of dark matter in clusters produce gravitational lensing effects that are 10 times stronger than expected. This evidence is based on unprecedentedly detailed observations. This very large telescope, BLT, in Chile. Birthdays. September 10th, 1857, James Edward Keeler. First to show observationally that the rings of Saturn do not rotate as a solid body. Keeler was the first to observe the gap in Saturn's rings, now known as the gap, using this 36-inch refractor at Lick Observatory in 1888. After this feature had been named for Johann Encke, who had observed a much broader variation in the brightness of the A-ring, Keeler's contributions were brought to light. A second major gap in the A-ring discovered by Voyager was named the Keeler Gap in his honor. In 1895, his spectroscopic study of the rings of Saturn revealed that different parts of the rings reflect light with different Doppler shifts due to their different rates of orbit around Saturn. This is the first observational confirmation of the theory of James Clerk Maxwell that the rings are made up of countless small objects, each orbiting Saturn at its own rate. September 12, 1966, Anusha Ansari was born. She was the first female space tourist. September 11th, Bob Crippen was born. And I don't know the year, I'm sorry. He piloted the first orbital space shuttle mission, STS-1, in 1981. He later served as director of NASA. This week in history, September 12th, 1991, Mae Jemison becomes the first African-American woman in space. September 8th, 1967, Surveyor 5 launched. It was the fifth lunar lander of the American uncrewed Surveyor program sent to explore the surface of the moon. Surveyor 5 landed on Mare Tranquillitatis. A total of 19,118 images were transmitted to Earth. On September 12, 1962, President Kennedy went to Rice University and gave his "We Choose to Go to the Moon" speech, setting the space program into high gear. This was one of the most important space events in the century. September 11th. This year we're observing the space station's 20th anniversary of continuous human presence. In that time, over 3,000 investigations from researchers in 108 countries have been accomplished on board. And finally, September 8th, 1967, the TV show Star Trek premiered. While it was I am corrected, 66. Typo. I should know that. I was alive. The science fiction show inspired many people to become engineers, scientists, astronomers, and astronauts and has given many of us a great deal of pleasure. That's all I got. Back to net, WB5OZL.
Well, thank you, Miss Brenda, and I'm so glad that you're checking your chat window because, yeah, it was 1966. That's okay. You're forgiven. Only this once. This is KE5ICX. I'm net control for tonight's Skynet. Let's see. Before Chaz does his second bit this evening, I'll go ahead and ask if there are any additional check-ins. If you'd like to join us, please come now with your call sign, name, where you're transmitting from.
This is Kilo Fox 5, Tango Hotel Bravo, Brenton, Henrietta. Back to net.
All right, very good. We've added Brent, KF5THB, one of our regulars over in Henrietta, over on Echolink. Okay, next up, Chaz, run back to the radio quickly. You're on again for Miss Carolyn's Constellation of the Week.
Thank you, Tom. And I'm looking at the clock, so I'm going to be skipping through some things. So I'll give you slide numbers where I'm going to be. Miss Carolyn's Constellation of the Week is named in honor of a silent key, Carolyn, KC5OZT. Carolyn contributed to Skynet each week almost from its beginning in 2012 until May of 2019, with a detailed look at one particular constellation each week. Since there are about 52 constellations easily seen out of the 88 total constellations visible in Texas throughout the year, Miss Carolyn covered the entire sky in a year. In her honor, we have continued the tradition of a constellation per week and named it after her. Miss Carolyn's Constellation of the Week this week is a 2-for-1 special. Vulpecula, the fox, and Sagitta, or Sagitta, I've heard it pronounced both ways, the arrow. Sagitta, or Sagitta, the constellation has been described as an arrow since ancient times by various cultures. This is slide number 14, sorry. The arrow itself is linked with various myths, but most often cited one is the arrow that Hercules used to kill the eagle sent by Zeus to torture Prometheus for giving the gift of fire to man. Wow. Okay. Slide number 15. Sham, or Alpha Sagitta, is derived from the Arabic al-Sham, which means the arrow. Though Sham is designated as Alpha Sagitta, it is actually the third brightest star in the constellation of magnitude 4.4. The brightest star in Sagitta is Gamma Sagittae. Oh yeah, that's the genitive form of the word. Yeah, those for you in Latin land. It's at magnitude 3.5. Gamma is the star that forms the arrow's head. Sham is the other end of the arrow, forming the part of the feathers, or fledglings. Slide number 16. M71 is generally considered to be a globular cluster today, although for decades there was controversy whether it was a dense open cluster or a loose globular cluster. In binoculars, M71 can be carefully picked out from the Milky Way background as a small, faint glow. Okay, I'm going to skip the rest of that. Slide 16, skip slide 17. I'm not going to do colander 408, but I'm going to skip down to slide 18. NGC, New General Catalog 6886, is a planetary nebula. It's one of those mini planetaries that are so small and they look star-like until you crank up the magnification. Large apertures help, and Dave Hutchinson, with his 16-inch Dobsonian, was able to see it. With a small scope, 16-inch small scope, that's what it really needs, is at least a 16-inch. With this scope, Dave writes that is fairly confident that he's found it. At 300 power, it looks to be a non-stellar object. And I am KF5JHA, and this is Skynet. The second constellation, this is slide number 19, is Vulpecula, the fox. It was originally created in the year 1687 by a Polish astronomer, Johannes Velitet. No, it's not. H-E-V. Have Ellis. I'm messing up the pronunciation of this. See, Tom, you're not the only one. To fill in the space between Cygnus and Sagitta, if you arrange all 88 constellations alphabetically, Vulpecula is the very last one on the list. So it appears at the very end of the last volume of Burnham's Celestial Handbook. Vulpecula is the 55th constellation in size and occupies an area of about 268 square degrees. Slide number 20. Alpha Vulpecula is a giant red star that is about 250 light years away. It shines at 4.4 magnitude as seen from the Earth. And binoculars, a companion star that can be seen and is not noticeable to the unaided eye. This is H Vulpecula, an orange giant star that shines about 5.8 magnitude. The two stars form a visual double only because they're not a true binary system. Okay, so here's a pop quiz. What's the proper name for Alpha Orionis? That would be Betelgeuse or Betelgeuse. What's the proper name for Alpha Leonis? That's Regulus. And what's the proper name? This is almost overhead right now. Alpha Lyra. That's Vega. What is Alpha Vulpecula? What's its proper name? Anyone know? Well, the proper name is Answer. So, that is a question that answers itself. I know you're laughing at that one. Slide number 21, please. Colander 399, better known as the Hanger, can be seen with the unaided eye in dark skies as an unresolved patch of light. It's easily resolved into distinctive coat hanger shape, even with the smallest telescopes, and even easy with binoculars or even a finder scope. It looks great in an 80 millimeter short focal refractor. In an 8-inch or larger telescope, use your lowest power, and then you might not be able to see the whole thing. So binoculars is probably the best thing to look at the coat hanger with. For years, the coat hanger was believed to be an open star cluster, but recent studies have shown that it's not a true cluster after all, but in reality, just a chance alignment of stars. Slide number 22. If you want to look at something dumb, M27 is what you need to look for. It's called the Dumbbell Nebula. It's a planetary nebula. And let's see now. It was discovered by Charles Messier himself in July of 1764. Burnham's Celestial Handbook describes M27 as the most conspicuous planetary nebula in the entire sky for small instruments, with a total magnitude of about 8. And it can be found in large binoculars. I've seen it in my 20 by 80 binoculars, so could be a good thing to go after. Even inside the city, you might be able to see it. Hey, Tom, I'm skipping down to slide number 24. NGC 6940 is a nice open cluster that is easily noticeable in binoculars, and it is bright enough to be made into the, it's in the Astronomical League Observing Club. A picture of NGC 6940 appears in Burnham's Celestial Handbook on page 2116. In the Night Sky Observer's Guide, George Keppel and Glenn Sanner describes NGC 6940 as a rich, beautiful open cluster of about 125 stars. Okay, slide number 25. There are more Astronomical League observing programs than the constellation of Vulpecula and Sagitta. I've just given you a sampling of these objects. The Astronomical League has over 60 different observing programs, most of which have around 100 objects. If you observe 10 of these objects in an observing program each month, then you can earn an observing certificate and a pen in about a year. Slide number 26. This is Miss Carolyn's Constellation of the Week, Vulpecula, and the Fox, and Sagitta, the Arrow. I want to thank my friends Dave Hutchinson and Dennis Harwell for their research and the words for for the deep sky objects I've used tonight. And I have also used the website constellation-guide.com for information. Next week, we'll be taking a look at Cygnus the Swan, or also known as the Northern Cross. Okay, this is KF5JHA. Back to you, Tom. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Chaz. You are as constant as the Northern Star, Shakespeare, and Star Trek 6. This is KE5ICX. I am net control for tonight's Skynet. Let's see here. It's 10:26. Let me go ahead and take additional check-ins or final check-ins at this point, and I'll give you a final blurb for tonight. Any additional check-ins, please come now.
KB5YMW.
Kilo X-Ray 7, Whiskey Tango Foxtrot, Sean from Denton on Echo Link.
KB5YMW.
Okay, let's see. I've got, is it Kilo Charlie 5 YMW or is it Kilo Delta? I may have misheard. And go ahead and give me your name and location.
Kilo Bravo 5, Yankee Mike Whiskey. Name here is John, located in McKinney.
Oh, John, you taught me a lesson. Don't even bother trying to interpret. If you didn't hear the call sign, just ask for the call sign again. Kilo Bravo 5, Yankee and Mike Whiskey. John McKinney, I've got you checked in. I got KX7 WTF. That's Sean over in Denton on Echolink. I've got you checked in as well. All right, we got 3 minutes. Let me see here. I'm just going to end it with space launches for this week. We got September 10th and 11th, which will be overnight. Launch window of 10 p.m. to 12:30 a.m. Eastern Daylight from the Pacific Spaceport Complex in Kodiak Island, Alaska. A commercial small satellite launch vehicle developed by Astra will make its first orbital launch attempt. Astra says there'll be no payloads on this test. It was scrubbed from August 2nd due to upper-level winds. But can you imagine? We have a space complex in Kodiak, Alaska. We have in September, to be determined, a Falcon 9 Starlink 12 launch. This will be from Space Launch Complex 40 over in Cape Canaveral Air Force Station in Florida. The SpaceX Falcon 9 rocket will launch the 13th batch of approximately 60 satellites for SpaceX Starlink broadband network, mission designated Starlink 12. All right, don't forget to go to heavens-above.com for additional information, particularly now with the repeater in use on the International Space Station. As I mentioned earlier in the net, by all means, go there, find the ISS and its visible passes. Makes it real easy to point your antenna to be able to use the repeater that's currently in operation. Now, this may change in the future. We don't know exactly when. It's up to the whims of the astronauts. Even Mission Control doesn't have control over it, so they are mission non-control. But do attempt it, make the connection, make the communications link. Do so low power. You don't need a lot. If you have a Yagi antenna, by all means use it. Arrow antennas are usually preferred in today's world. But if you just want to listen in from space, go ahead and set it for your 440 downlink frequency, 437.800 megahertz, to listen in. So tonight we had 34 hams who checked in, and thank you for all who did so. We'll join us here next week and every Saturday night at 9 p.m. to discuss astronomy, space and space exploration. On this net, the sky is never the limit. We're always looking for net controls for this and all the other DARC nets. If you're interested, send an email to nets@w5fc.org. And as Joe would always say at the end of his nets and videos, I wish you 73 and clear skies. Remember to keep looking up to see the greatest show on Earth right over your head every single night. Good night, everyone, from me, KE5ICX. We will be back in 5 minutes for the Afterglow Movie Net, where we talk about Flight World War II from Asylum Pictures. They're worse than American International, and you'll find out why. We'll be back in 5 minutes. Thank you, everyone. 7-3, have a good evening.
Is there a net control plan for tonight? If not, I'm down to take it. This is K5ANE.
Hey, Kane, you are scheduled, so you got it, my friend. KE5ICX.
Awesome. We'll give people just another minute or so to get ready for this awesome net. I can feel it.
I've been waiting for this quote for a while. I give you and your gallant crew 2 minutes.
The British are coming. The British are coming to shoot us down inside BB.
Come on, that was a good one. Don't let Tom con you into anything. 2 minutes instead of 1? That's funny.
I'm familiar with ham comms now, Chaz, inside BB.
know what I mean. 55 seconds.
When Tom is hidden, he uses a conning tower to con you. Inside BB.
Welcome to the Afterglow Movie Net on W5FC. This is K5A&E, and I'll be your night control tonight. We meet every Saturday night at around 10:30, and we talk about interesting movies, usually sci-fi, sometimes older ones, just anything that kind of tickles our fancy. This week's movie was Flight World War II, and gosh, was it a movie. I'll just go ahead and start off by reading Tom's description of this movie that he sent out by email. The captain of the 757-200 yawned and looked at his watch. The Washington, D.C. to London flight was a long one, especially for this narrow-body aircraft, but that's International Airlines for you. The captain spoke. "Welcome aboard. This is your captain. We'd like to turn your attention to the video monitors. We have a double feature selection of movies tonight. The Final Countdown with Kirk Douglas and an episode of the classic Twilight Zone, The Odyssey of Flight 33. And right on cue, as though it had been listening, a giant wormhole appeared in front of the jet. Captain Strong took note of the clocks running backwards and added this snippet. Also, we have a strong tailwind and associated wormhole, meaning we'll be arriving in London about 75 years early. Man, clocking this time will be a real issue, Strong thought. But first he'd have to deal with the Messerschmitt Me 262 at 12 o'clock high. He thought to himself, 12 o'clock high, I love that show. The first missile hit. So, normally, we do a round of check-ins, and then we'll take how everybody feels on the plot of the movie, which there's a lot of things to talk about with this plot. And then we'll do another round of check-ins, and then we'll talk about the characterization, what everybody thought about the characters, which, surprisingly enough, for a movie about a plane, there actually are a decent number of characters. And then finally, we'll talk about whatever we want to talk about. Special effects. There were some special effects. And if there's anything else you want to share about the movie, some interesting planes to talk about, I guess, would be a good thing, too, to throw in on that round. Enough stalling, though. Let's get going. Come on in with your call sign, your name, your location, and if you saw the movie or not.
November 5, Bravo, Bravo. Bill in Irving? Yes, I saw this fine flick. Certainly.
November Tango 5, Tango Mike, Tony in Dallas. I did see the movie.
Kilo Golf 5, Bravo Zoo Whiskey J near Weatherford. I did see the film.
Whiskey Bravo 5, Oscar Zulu Lima, Brendan DeSoto. Did see it.
Kilo Echo 5, India Charlie X-Ray, Tom, Louisville. Yes, I saw the movie 75 years ago. That should tell you something.
All right, let's stop there for a second. I've got N5BB, Bill in Irving, who saw the movie. November Tango 5, Tango Mike, Tony, who saw the movie. KG5, BZW, in Weatherford, he saw the movie. We got Brenda in DeSoto, WB5OZL, who saw the movie. And KE5ICX, Tom in Louisville, who saw the movie. Any other check-ins, come on in with your call sign, your name, your location, and if you saw the movie.
WT9V, Michael in Plano, and I started watching it, and I kind of lost interest partway through because it was just so abysmal. Total waste of videotape. WT9V.
All right, let's turn to Echolink. If there are any Echolink check-ins, come on in with your call sign, your name, your location, and if you saw the movie or not. Nothing heard. Let's just give one more chance here. If anybody else would like to check in, you don't have to have seen the movie. Come on in with your call sign, your name, your location, and if you saw it or not. All right. I guess that'll wrap that up for the initial check-in. Let's get started here. So, this is K5A&E, your net control, from tonight for the Afterglow Movie Net, where we're talking about Flight World War II. And let's start off talking about the plot. N5BB. Bill, what'd you think of the plot? Pretty solid, right?
Well, Kane, this is N5BB. It is a science fiction kind of plot. So, you know, you have to kind of bite your tongue and not get too critical. But this is the same plot we've seen in several other movies. I mean, you knew what was going to happen the moment they flew into the nasty-looking electrical storm. It was obvious. And then you knew where they'd go back to. I mean, they wouldn't go back to the Civil War, and they probably wouldn't go back to anything else than World War II. Where else would they go? I mean, to make it interesting. And that's the reason that same plot's been used in several movies. Sometimes they're ships, but usually airplanes are involved. Sometimes they're in the Pacific, getting near Pearl Harbor. In this case, they were over in Europe. So again, I had to just kind of groan and bear that. Other things about the plot. The vortex. No explanation about the vortex. No guesses about it. It was just there. Why was it there? How did they happen to find it? How did they happen to find it a second time? No inkling, no guesses, nothing at all. Some things about the plot that bothered me greatly. After they went through the vortex and were trying to figure out why they couldn't show anything on their instruments. And by the way, at different places in the movie, at some places, it appeared that their instruments were all defective. They were even talking about all the instruments that had been installed at a certain date or something. At other times, it appeared, well, their instruments weren't working because satellites weren't there. That would be GPS or navigation beacons. None of that was really explained. Anyway, they also didn't explain how they happened on the right communication frequencies. That was all just, there they were. They didn't even appear to be trying different channels. They were just talking on the radio and kept on trying until it worked, which wasn't very realistic. But the thing that bothered me the most is when they went through the vortex. They were one of the pilots directed the other one saying they were going to make a loop and try to find some other aircraft. Make a loop. Well, they weren't making a 100-mile loop. They were making a very quick little loop. And the radar works. It doesn't only work. I don't know. To me, that made no sense at all. I guess maybe they only had forward-looking radar in that airplane. I didn't really understand that. I also thought it was really funny. Well, no, that's probably characterization. I'll leave that for later. They talked about the radar is localized to us. He made that statement. What? The radar is localized to us? We'll have to get the radar on the ground before we can see very far? That made no sense at all. Also, the way they took the radar out, radars are built up at the nose of the airplane. They're not going to be able to crawl in there and take the radar out. And to power it up, they had somebody's USB battery, and they thought that would power up an aircraft radar? Give me a break. So there were a lot of things about the plot which they didn't just have holes in them. The water was flowing through like the dam was breaking. What else? Well, that's enough. So, although I thought the movie was kind of interesting, in fact, I thought it kind of got a little more interesting at some point, and I didn't feel like I was getting bored at any point, really, personally. And the movie it was done well enough to be kind of interesting all the way through. The plot was stupid. N5BB.
N5BB, this is K5A&E, net control for the Afterglow Movie Net. And yeah, I have a lot of similar opinions on the plot overall. And a couple thoughts about what you were talking about, how, it really makes sense if you're in this plane that, the only interesting time to go back in time to is probably going to be something like, World War II, and that's why all these movies and, shows and things like that tend to send planes back there, because then there's at least something else in the sky that, is interesting to you. But on the same hand, you're like, even a Cessna is going to be like oftentimes more interesting or have more technology packed in it these days than, a World War II fighter plane. Although the Cessna definitely wouldn't win in a race on that one. But yeah, it made me think about maybe it'd be interesting to have a cruise ship that gets attacked by like ancient or, older pirates and things like that, like pirates from like the 1500s or something. That'd be kind of interesting, like a modern day cruise ship being overrun by swarms of pirates. Yeah, I don't know, just a thought. Anyways, let's continue on talking about the plot. November Tango 5, Tango Mike, Tony, what do you think of this plot?
Everything Bill said, and even more so. I'm actually a big fan of alternative history science fiction. I loved Mark Twain's The Connecticut Yankee in King Arthur's Court, and ever since then I've been fascinated by the problem of how do you explain technology to people who don't have it yet, especially given the fact that you probably don't understand the technology very well. It's often said that no one person can make a pencil. I mean, do you know how to both make yellow paint from raw chemicals and operate a graphite mine? Probably not. If you would like to read some fun alternative history about things being brought into the past, there's an author named Harry Turtledove. Many of his books, science fiction doesn't pay well, So he has to turn out a lot of books to make ends meet, and some of them, frankly, are awful. But he has a couple of good things I'd like to point out. One is a book called Guns of the South, The Guns of the South, about AK-47s being brought back into the Civil War, because really that's something they could understand. They already knew how to make rifle barrels, and their chemists could pick apart the smokeless gunpowder in the cartridges, and it wasn't too far out of reach. He also had a great series that began with a book called World War, In the Balance, about World War II, which is really applicable to this movie. Not only can you not just take the radar out of the nose of the plane, but it probably would have just confused the British more than it helped them. Sir, we've taken apart the radar they gave us. There's this gray thing. It looks kind of like a centipede. And when we tried to put 12 volts through it, it went poof. They don't know what a computer chip is. They don't have a silicon industry. The ultra-pure materials needed to make semiconductors are decades out of their reach. Useless. Distract them. Might help them lose the war even. What they really needed on that plane was an antiques dealer who had an old radio engineering handbook from the 50s in his carry-on luggage that he was bringing to a client. That's what to give down to them, something that's just a little bit ahead of what they had, so it's all still kind of within their reach if they only knew what it was. It did keep me watching. I think part of that was because Aaron and I did a beehive inspection today, and wearing bee suits in this heat just leaves you dead tired. So I just sat on the couch and watched the whole thing. It kept moving. I paid attention to it. I'm sure glad the guy was able to cling to the landing gear. But yeah, powering the radar from a USB, they'd even understand how the radar worked. Oh, not a chance. Not a chance, chap. At any rate, I actually need to check out. Got some family things going on here, but I'll be listening NT5TM. Thank you, Kane.
NT5TM, this is K5ANE. Thanks for that, those insights, and absolutely agree with you. You don't want to come in as a space alien suddenly dropping off crazy, technology that is, many decades ahead that, without any kind of reference to how these things are, work. I mean, gosh, opening up one of those packages for those chips would definitely blow their minds. Let's continue on talking about the plot. This is K5ANE, your net control for the Afterglow Movie Net. And let's go on to KG5BZW, Jay in Weatherford. What do you think of the plot?
I feel like it's going to be a continuation of what everybody else has said. This is KG5BZW. Yeah, it's just kind of interesting about the alternate history. They had surface-to-air missiles, which kind of involve radar, as far as I know. There's just gigantic holes in this plot. Even the delivery mechanism, I forget what kind of, I always forget words when I need them, that the rain suit kind of cover thing, that struck me as probably advanced for the 40s, the type of plastic. But, yeah, I don't know. You have to ignore some of it, obviously, because it's it's sci-fi and all, but even the I don't know. I'm not really sure when VHF airband started really getting into use. So I'm really kind of confused how they were able to talk to the spy, but maybe it was because it's special equipment or whatever, and I don't know. Let me see if I can think of something else. Actually, let me reset. Okay, so I want to say there's some good to this movie. I don't know. It didn't. There's that one quote which was kind of cool. And of course, I've already forgotten it. It was like one of the military personnel was talking to the passengers in revolt. I can't remember that. I'm hearing myself on the radio and distract me. For some reason, the seriousness of the actors actually didn't bother me, which is kind of surprising. So they must have done something right there, because normally when I see people taking a kind of goofy situation seriously in a movie, like 90% of the time, I'm like, oh, I just hate it. And to be honest, the movie, I had trouble watching it. I had to try to distance myself from the my remote, because there's just every so often I just want to pause it and take in the misery of trying to figure it all how wrong it is. I guess I don't know. In fact, I didn't even watch the last 5 minutes. I just like, well, okay, they laughed, yay. That's enough of that. Well, I guess that's my 2 cents. I didn't really. I felt like I didn't exactly talk about the plot, but just general characteristics of the movie. So anyway, I'll probably have more to say later. KG5BZW back to net control.
KG5BZW, this is K5ANE, your net control for the Afterglow Movie Net. And I have to say, there's actually a little bit of kind of an extra thing thrown in there, the whole time travel thing, and the last scene of the movie that is a little bit interesting. Maybe not worth your time to go back and rewatch it, but literally, like, if you watch the last, 40 seconds and you remember some of the names, it'll start to make a lot of sense. So, hey, yeah, you might think about checking that out. Anyways, let's continue on talking about the plot on this week's movie, which was Flight World War II. Let's continue on to Whiskey Bravo 5, Oscar Zulu Lima, Brenda in DeSoto. What do you think of the plot?
This is WB5OZL. Well, it wasn't much worse than a lot of other movies we've seen. I'll have to admit, The Final Countdown is one of my favorite movies. I have seen it many, many times. And, yeah, it's stupid, but that's okay. When they go splash to zeros, you just cheer. It's just a wonderful movie. Of course, it has Kirk Douglas. And you just have to suspend belief. There's a storm right there where it needs to be. Who knows why things happen? Why do aliens land in your backyard? There's no rhyme or reason for that. But anyway, it wasn't too bad for what it was. If you don't just try and pick it apart, it was okay. But we're going to pick it apart anyway. A lot of it just made you scratch your head. And you go, the beginning, 1940 ME-262s, I don't think so. And, your first thought is they didn't do any research because they don't know what they're talking about. And then they kind of explain it later. Yeah, so much of it is like, oh, come on. You're going to drop the radar from a plane at whatever, 10,000 feet and hit the target? I don't think so. So, but, you know, it was fun. It kept me occupied and kept me off the streets and at home, and that's a good thing. And didn't fall asleep. That's a good thing. But I think a lot of the, I liked some of the storylines that sort of wove together, that the conflicts between the characters, and then how that fit into the plot. Okay, done for now. WB5OZL.
WB5OZL, this is K5A&E. Thanks for joining us tonight on tonight's Afterglow Movie Net. And let's continue talking about the plot here. KE5ICX, Tom, what do you think of the plot?
Well, thank you, King. Thank you for doing the net this evening. I had a little different take on it. I have to admit that I've spent a lot of time in the new Star Trek world with so many time travel stories. I think Mr. Plinkett even figured out it was like to a multiple power. It's like 2 million times a second. The timeline is distorted in Star Trek by all the ships and everything that's going on. So when I look at it, I kind of look at it in a little different way. The fact that the time travel events that were going on when the 757-200 narrow body, which is really stupid going over the Atlantic, but you can still do it technically. I looked it up just in case, so I'd have something to gripe about in the movie. The thing about it is that, yeah, the Messerschmitt's 262s were seen in 1940. They made mention of that and said that wasn't true. It was 1945, late in the war, that they were introduced, and they were highly unreliable. There were also no surface air-to-air missiles back then, which they did have. Oh, one thing I have to say is the Germans never got any better than the stormtroopers in Star Wars. They'd shoot machine guns at the 727 and never poke a hole. Anywhere in the airplane, except when they got the co-pilot, the guy that has that late night show, the one with the hair thing. Anyway, they didn't talk about that, which would suggest either this is the first round for a looped history thing, which I thought was kind of cool, because we know Dunkirk, they're successful. Radar shows up earlier in the game, but none of this happens, which really leaves you with an overarching story that what we're living in currently is a loop of history, not the first instance of that actual history. Now that makes it interesting for me in that sense, and that somehow or another we'll all figure it out. Yes, Google the historical events and the guy with the radar and all of that, and it suddenly has another dimension which I think is pretty good. This one was done by, I think this one was Asylum Pictures. I'm not entirely sure, which is sort of a cheapened version of American International, with enough in the way of visual effects to create stories that otherwise wouldn't be told and probably shouldn't be. So expect, in fact, our movie in a couple of weeks is an Asylum International film, Titanic 2. Not next week, or is it? No, it is next week. I don't know. Let me go look. I'll let you know. I think it is Titanic 2, Asylum Pictures. So they do sort of the thing that Irwin Allen would do, which is create this thing that would be of interest. In this case, it's a knockoff of Final Countdown. So yeah, and Bill says Asylum Pictures, and Asylum is where the writers should be sent. And you're right, and Titanic 2 should be another one of those films. But I thought the idea was good. I will tell you this, the pacing was excellent. There's just constant action throughout the thing, and it was designed for a small screen anyway, for television, so they kept it visually interesting. I have some complaints about the 727 itself on the outside. On the inside, the outside is okay. It looks like it came from Flight Simulator, which was fine. The captain is an idiot. I'm going to tell you, that guy... Let me explain something. This might be under characterization, but I think it's more like plot. This captain just tells them everything that they shouldn't know. Passengers are sheep. When they're on the airplane, you feed them along with the same information over and over again. This is Captain Endicott, or this is Captain Strong in this case. You may have seen me in Star Trek 1999, the rebooted, 2009. 2009, the rebooted television series. But I'm not that guy. What I am is this guy that is going to tell you everything you need to. In fact, we're flying over, wherever the hell it was, and somewhere in Berlin. No, it wasn't Berlin. I don't know. They were on their way to Sweden. But it goes on and on and on and on and on and tells people unconvincingly that the plane is fine. Now, we've got turbulence. No turbulence. They go down under the weather bank that's there, and they see a raging battle going on. So what a pilot should do is simply say, this is Captain Strong, we're about 15 minutes out. I'm going to turn on the no smoking sign. We've gotten a note, and whether this is true or not doesn't matter. We've just gotten word from the tower that we're going to have to slow it up a little bit for about 15 minutes. 15 minutes, and then we'll be in on our initial approach. This is Captain Strong again, 15 minutes later. He says, well, it'll be another 15 minutes before we actually begin our landing. Appears to be a squirrel on the runway, and we'll get back to you with new information. This is Captain Strong. We're 15 minutes after the 15 minutes after the 15 minutes, and the squirrel has been scraped off the runway, and we'll be landing in another 15 minutes. So what he's done is he's told them it's 15 minutes, but it's an hour of 15 minutes. This pilot fails that test. Mark my words. And Brenda, ask Brian. He'll tell you. That's it for now. KE5ICX.
KE5ICX, this is K5A&E, your net control tonight for the Afterglow Movie Net. And I was definitely looking forward to some of your commentary on the planes and the flight and the behavior of the captain. I know how much you love planes, and always enjoy your commentary when it comes to aircraft and aviation. Let's continue on. Talking about the plot here. WT9V, Michael in Plano. What did you think of the plot?
Now, I have trouble calling something like this science fiction because, I don't know. There was very little of anything. Yeah, they went back in the past, and yeah, but it's probably better to go back to, World War II, because if you end up going back to the Jurassic area and you get a pterodactyl sucked into an engine, that's going to be the start of a bad day. But you could go around shooting, running them down. I don't know. It's just it's been done before, and I think it's been done a lot better. The plot overall, go back in time, something happens, come back. but it was all of the in-between stuff that was just terrible. You know, the co-pilot takes one right through whatever, you know, important part of his body, you know, and he's blood everywhere. But fly the plane, that's no problem. It just hurts a little bit, no problem. Here, stick a rag on the hole in the floor. It's just so many things. I did like seeing, you know, the jerk get, you know, punched out by the sergeant or whatever he was. That part was good. But the rest of it, just bad. I think, like I say, I think it was a waste of videotape. WT9V.
WT9V, K5A, your net control for the Afterglow Movie Net. And, yeah, thanks for that input. And we're going to go ahead and take another quick round of check-ins. If anybody else would like to check in, the movie this week was Flight World War II. If anybody would like to come and join us, you don't have to have seen the movie to check into the net. Come on in with your call sign, your name, your location, and if you saw the movie or not.
Time ago.
Well, that was weird. I heard kind of a little bit of FM interference or something like that, really quiet, and then a brief little bit of noise. Go ahead and try that one more time. Come on in with your call sign, your name, your location, and if you saw the movie or not. Any check-ins, come on in with your call sign, your name, your location, and if you saw the movie or not. All right, nothing heard. I guess we'll continue on. And I'll go ahead and give my opinions on the plot. I'm sure everybody's been waiting for this. I have to say, the Langoliers did it best. As far as all these kinds of movies of flying back in time, I really like the ideas in the Langoliers far better than this movie or the other ones that people have talked about, like This Final Countdown and The Odyssey of Flight 33. Both of those are pretty good movies, but gosh, it's really hard to beat a good Stephen King novel. The other thing I have to say with this plot is, why does it always seem like, ooh, look, a weird electrical anomaly in this giant crazy storm. We should fly straight into that. What would have happened if they only had a grazing blow on that thing? Would half the plane have been sent back in time? Who knows? I also kind of thought it was interesting, the idea of, them being able to make contact with their guy on the ground, the British guy. And at first I actually was thinking that maybe that guy in that shack kind of thing was a ham. And then it turned out, no, he actually wasn't a ham. He really is like a military guy or whatever. So, I don't know. Kind of killed a little bit for me, but I guess it kind of makes sense driving the plot forward that the guy actually has the ability to do things as opposed to just being like, oh, I'm just playing around with the radio and managed to hear you. Good luck. And it makes sense that in some ways that they would be able to communicate because, aviation radios, I believe, are still using AM for most communications. And most of the radios that they would have had on the field at the time were probably also AM radios. FM did exist, and there were some FM radios out there, but I don't think they were super common in those kinds of, especially forward field kind of based setups. But the frequency ranges are all weird. The common military radios at that time, especially those that have been out in the field, would probably have maxed out at about 50 megahertz, with a lot of the lower frequency kind of, upper frequency, the lower end of the higher end of radio stuff was around like the 40s or so from what I was reading, with, of course, longer distance being, more HF kind of stuff. But yeah, for the things that the plane doesn't really have, at least I don't think the plane had an HF radio on it.
Comment, N5BB?
N5EB, go ahead.
You're wrong there. This is N5BB. VHF AM was used extensively in World War II. Things like the SCR 522. A lot of those radios made it into the surplus market, and hams were using them in the 50s and the 60s. My first 2-meter AM radio was an ARC-1 that a ham had modified slightly. An ARC-1 that was a World War II military radio. So, no, they were using for airplane to airplane, comparably short distance communications, direct line of sight kind of things. They were using VHF. Now, for long distance, like talking from, flying over France, eastern or southern France back to Great Britain, they were using HF. What I didn't understand is why the radio operator on the ground was located somewhere over near the France-Germany border. That made no sense to me at all. Why were they able to shoot ground-to-air missiles, evidently, the British, over in that eastern area of France or western area of Germany? That made no sense at all to me, as well as the alternative history part about Dunkirk. Anyway, I just had to throw in those additional plot screw-ups, or weirdnesses, I should say. N5BB.
N5BB, this is K5ANE. Thanks for that little bit of additional knowledge there. I'll try and look up more into that to go see more on these 2-meter-ish aviation radios that they had before. But either way, that's pretty neat. Good to know. Thanks for sharing. And yeah, I still think it's really strange that they would have been able to just stumble on each other frequency-wise, because there's a lot of space on the bands, and they just happen to run into each other within only a few minutes of really trying too. So gosh, it's hard to raise people these days. Even if they're with a bunch of hams out there, and here there's really probably only like 100 or so people in that whole region of the world listening on anywhere near those kinds of frequencies, and you just happen to stumble on the right guy at the right time. Pretty strange. But then again, there are tons of plot holes that everybody else went ahead and brought up. So that's about it for me on the plot. Overall, I do find that the pacing was really great, and it kept my attention despite being a bit, blah on a lot of things. But enough to keep it moving, and enough that, I was at least watching the screen. Let's continue on, talking about characterization now, and I'm probably just going to try and pick randomly here from the list to keep things interesting. Let's start off with WB5OZL. Brenda, what do you think of the characters?
This is WB5OZL. Some of the characters I really liked, and some I didn't. I liked Cameron, that flight attendant. She was pretty spunky, and she could sure wield a mean fire extinguisher. Don't mess with her. And she was fearless. I liked her. Said spunk. Captain was very captainly. I think it's fitting he was Captain Strong, and very believable as a captain. And although I I guess this is more of a plot thing, but, you know, you got one person in the cockpit wounded and the other one leaves. It's like, who's flying the plane? Oh, that girl is, right. So, some of the people were not. It's like, are you sure you know what you're doing? Was my reaction in many cases. Plenty of opportunity for people to panic and fight. It was sort of a bar brawl scene. Not everybody's best night of losing it. And I thought Nigel was just perfect. The young one. You just couldn't imagine anybody more fitting for that part than Nigel. He even has the perfect name. Oh, let's see, what else? Well, I'm out of ideas. Maybe I'll have some later. WB50ZL.
WB50ZL, this is K5ANE Net Control for the Afterglow Movie Net. And yeah, I definitely agree with you on Nigel. I feel that both the actor was cast perfectly and, you know, that character makes a lot of sense. You would probably want to have, you know, somebody, a younger soldier in there, which, I mean, this is World War II, you know, and it's a lot of the people that were fighting in World War II were oftentimes on the younger side anyways, but you'd want to have a younger soldier in there that would be a bit more open to this kind of craziness, you know, as opposed to, you know, a stodgy old guy or something like that that would just turn off the radio and be like, nah, this person's pulling my chain, I'm just going to turn the channel. But yeah, let's continue on talking about characterization. KG5BZW, Jay in Weatherford. What do you think of the characters?
This is KG5BZW. The characters, I agree. I actually like the captain, even though, yeah, he did make a number of kind of stupid decisions. But I did like the way he acted, and I thought, you know, given the source material, the actor did a good job, and, you know, Nigel was pretty good. And, you know, the flight attendant. So, I mean, I guess that's probably the one reason, a few reasons I don't hate this film, even though, you know, I might probably, do I like it? Yeah, not really. But I don't hate it. I don't hate it. There's actually, I thought the acting, for the most part, was okay. It's other parts. I guess the one character that kind of annoyed me, which I guess was in some sense is supposed to be annoying because whatever. I mean, he gets to come out, but anyway. The one, I don't. There's several ways I could describe it. The passenger that's learning through the back, kind of, you know, put together clues and everything, and I mean, well, there's actually enough, too much of that I don't even want to discuss it because I think it distracts from what we're doing. So I won't. But I think part of that's just the characters are meant to be annoying, but I think they made him super annoying, like more to the point that it was kind of ridiculous. Let's see. Of course, the Germans were just, you know, blank enemy warriors. So much screaming. that was over the top. They had so many screaming passenger, and it almost sounded like they were using the same scream sounds over and over, scream pattern even. It was, oh man. So not perfect characters. I think of something else to say, or Co-pilot was okay. Strange, a little bit strange. Oh, it hurts like heck. I've had some, cuts to my skin. I don't know how many really need stitches. I've had a few that needed stitches that I never did get to get stitches, and I've got some scars on that. But that was just a little bit strange, because a lot of that stuff it only hurts after you get the if it gets like really infected and stuff, or just even when it's healing, it's not really after. In fact, I don't know. The way to describe the wound being superficial is what I'm going by. I was like, I've never had a non-superficial wound. I don't even know if they knew what the hell they were talking about in terms of superficial. I'm using the word superficial. I think they're using their term. I've been talking for a while. All right, to the next person, KG5 BZW.
KG5BZW, this is K5A&E, your net control for the Afterglow Movie Net, where we've been talking about the characters of Flight World War II. And let's continue on, picking kind of randomly here. WT9V, what'd you think of the characters?
Oh, why are you picking on me? What did I do to deserve this? Excuse me. I thought they were all terrible. Well, almost all of them. Tom has already addressed the captain, but I'm sure he'll address the captain more. Nitro was okay, I guess. Kind of, I don't know. I think I hated the movie so much I really just don't have any comments about the characters, because things, it was, words fail me. I'm kind of lost. I did like it, where, what's her face, the stewardess said, if you touch me again. I thought it was good. And I just really wanted to see her, I don't know, chuck the guy out a window or something. WT9B, I give up.
WT9V, this is K5A&E, net control for the Afterglow Movie Net. And let's continue on talking about characterization here. And I guess I'm going to go ahead and go with KE5ICX. Tom, what'd you think of the characters?
Well, let's see. All right, the captain, William Strong. Jeez, who would have ever guessed it? The leader, the captain, the guy in charge of the plane would be called William Strong. I don't know why. He doesn't look like a William Strong. He looks like a friend to here. And he played, what was it on, what the hell was it? In the Star Trek reboot, he was the captain of the ship with not Jackson Roy Kirk, that was another episode. But at any rate, the father of Captain Kirk, whatever his name was. In any case, he played the role pretty well, except for the really bad announcements. You gotta have a bedside manner in space and on airplanes. In this case, a 757-200 narrow body, but it's okay. So he did all right later on. I wasn't overly impressed with him. Nigel was good, Corporal Nigel, who ended up on the flight and on the ground, air to ground, and ground to air. In time travel, you can be in two places at once, and you can be different ages, and that's exactly what happened. So Nigel was there, and he did that. He did a good job. That's played by Robbie Kay, I guess. And then Cameron Hicks, the spunky flight attendant, as what's his name said in, what was it? I'm trying to remember the show. Now I've lost my train of thought. It derailed and crashed over the mountain. Hold on. Oh, I remember. The Mary Tyler Moore Show. He says, Mr. Grant. Yeah, see, I have to roll the episodes in the back of my head. As Mr. Grant says, I hate spunk. So that was what Brenda said, and I agree. And she needs to find better fitting clothes, but this is an Asylum production, so like American International and everything that came before it and after, or Samuel is the Arkoff production, expect whatever that is. The co-pilot, he was pretty much worthless. I don't know what it is about co-pilots, but they don't seem to know what the hell they're doing. They got to sit on the right side of the plane and more or less tell the captain he's doing everything wrong, or say that he can't do his job. That seems to be a part of virtually every aviation-type film. The co-pilot sucks. Eventually, it doesn't matter, because in most movies, the pilot and the co-pilot are sucked out of the airplane, and the flight attendant has to fly. Cameron could have been that. And in fact, I think she did fly it for a little while. She was in the left seat. Yeah, she was in the left seat while the co-pilot was busy bleeding. So I guess that works. That's kind of typical of most movies. Now, I'm going to go back to the plot just for a second, because I've thought of this brilliant thing, because, I'm brilliant. And that is that they got on the airplane. We really don't know what the condition of the world was at the time. Could it have been the Nazis were in charge, and suddenly we get on this airplane? I'm going to use my German accent and use this monocle. They get on the airplane, but nobody knows that they are in, occupied Europe after World War II. I don't know. It could have been. And this is the way to fix the problem. I don't know. And then old Nigel, talks to Nigel Prime, and they don't. The captain talks to him, and then the captain finds out at the very end with the creepy music that never happened that, in fact, Nigel was a time traveler, just like in the Final Countdown, which had a decent score, by the way, but that is neither here nor there. Okay, I basically said nothing over the last 2.5 minutes, so I'll send it back to net control in whatever timeline we're in. KE5I6.
KE5ICX, this is K5ANE. Who knows? Maybe we're now in the timeline where we never saw this movie. Oh, wait, I remember seeing it, so I guess we're still in the same timeline. Dang it. Alright, let's continue on. N5BB, what'd you think of the characterization?
This is N5BB. Well, first, correcting a couple of Tom's mistakes. Cameron did not sit in the pilot's seat. No, that was a different flight attendants. One of the ones with dark hair, and I don't know if she had a name, but one of the other flight attendants sat in that seat. I remember her sitting down in it and kind of looking mystified. We saw her sitting down, but that's all we saw. I don't remember seeing the pilot going back in. He somehow appeared back in the cockpit, but we didn't see that. Cameron was pretty spunky. You saw her pick up the fire extinguisher, I guess it was, and she just belted one of those guys. It was pretty amazing there. And she even got kudos. Somebody gave her some good comments about what she'd done during that. Tom said Nigel was time traveler. No, it looked like the young Nigel was older when the flight flew back. So if you think about the ages of the people involved, if Nigel was 20 years old in 1940, that means he would have been born in 1920. So are we saying if this happened in 2015, that was when the movie was released, he would be 95 years old. That guy wasn't 95 years old. So maybe the movie was supposed to occur, in the 90s. I don't know. It wasn't clear. Although it couldn't have been too early, because remember, they had, I can't remember the model number. I've got one of those. He's got one of those little USB rechargeable power supplies that they threw in with the radar, which was the stupidest technological goof in the movie. When I saw Nigel on the ground, of course it was Nigel running it. They didn't have enough money to hire some other actors. When Nigel on the ground was running the radar, they showed a rotating radar outside, rotating 360 degrees. The radars in the front of an airplane, well, the ones in the front of the airplanes are weather radars, and they don't go 360 degrees. They can't. The airplane would block them. So that made no sense at all, and they couldn't have possibly operated. But anyway, I need to talk about characterization. Anyway, I thought Cameron Hicks' character was done pretty well. She was very spunky. She had kind of more character than anybody else. The captain's character, William Strong, what a stupid name for them. But anyway, it was over the top. It was too over the top, as Tom had said. Number one, he had anger issues early in the thing. He got really mad. And the thing, I didn't understand a lot of this. It was released in 2015, a long time after, 9/11. So at some point, the flight attendants had to get the captain's attention for the captain to allow them into the cockpit, the flight attendants. But later in the movie, did you notice that the flight attendants entered some code on a pad and got in there? So I did not understand the security protocol. And at one point, the captain was vacillating, being in there or not, and it didn't look very realistic to me. Let's just put it that way. Other things about the characterization. There was the guy that got really mad. I think this was the Michael guy, the guy that stood up and made the little soliloquy early in the thing. Oh, we're going backwards in time. We're all going to die and everything. And then they shut him up, and he didn't do anything during the whole rest of the movie other than donate his little USB battery charger. There were one particular lady that was crying a lot and screaming, "We're all going to die!" One blonde lady, and they kept going back to her for her. All she did was cry and make yell a lot. I didn't see anybody getting very concerned about the poor woman, at least one passenger, that was sucked out of the airplane. They didn't talk about it. They didn't discuss it. It wasn't a big deal. And when they came into land, they had a big hole in the side of the airplane. They weren't talking about it. I don't know. It would have been so noisy in that airplane with the side blown open like that they wouldn't have been able to talk or anything in that aircraft, I'm sure. So that wasn't very realistic. But anyway, let's see. Characterization. What else can I say? Let's see. They made the statement. The co-pilot did. "Captain, we will get through this. I've flown with you 1,000,000 times, and you have never let me down." Isn't that a corny statement? Just corn. The best guy was the guy that went down, that was climbed down on the landing gear, and then they pulled him back up. He was braver than all the rest of them. Did you notice that the two military guys wouldn't even volunteer for doing that? But that guy did it, the mechanic. And the woman that was so scared earlier, the engineer, she volunteered to go down there. So, I don't know. That was some good touches, but those characters weren't extended very much. They just kind of zipped through that too quickly. If they had spent a little bit more time about those two characters, the woman engineer and the mechanic guy that went down the landing craft, I wish they'd talked a little bit more about their characters earlier in the movie, and that would have made it a lot more interesting, I think. That's all I got. N5BB.
N5BB, this is K5A&E, your net control for the Afterglow Movie Net. And let's just go ahead and reach out and see if anybody else would like to come on in. We're talking about Flight World War II. If you'd like to check in, this is the last chance. Come on in with your call sign, your name, your location, and if you saw the movie or not.
Kilo Golf 5, zombies need jobs. Frank in Flower Mound. I saw the movie, reporting for duty.
Kilo Golf 5, Papa Mike, November, James, Oklahoma. I did not see the movie.
All right, I heard KG5, Zombies Need Jobs, Frank and Flower Mound, who saw the movie, and KG5 PMN, sorry I missed your name, in Oklahoma, who did not see the movie. You mind coming back in with your name?
KG5 PMN, this is James here in Oklahoma. KG5 PMN.
All right, I've got KG5 PMN, James in Oklahoma. Anybody else would like to check into the net tonight? Come on in with your call sign, your name, your location, and if you saw the movie or not. All right, nothing heard. This is K5A&E, your net control for the Afterglow Movie Net. We'll go ahead and reach out to the two latecomers here and see what they thought about the movie or just the net in general. KG5, Jay. Feel free to give your ideas, characterization, plot, since you missed that the first round. Go ahead.
That's KG5ZNJ. I guess I'll do a little 2-for-1 here since I'm coming late. I've probably missed most of the commentary, so I hope I don't repeat what other people said. But, well, let's start off with Captain Kojak and his co-pilot hair helmet. Well, here's the thing, man. I'm not a pilot, okay? So this is just me speculating, but if I saw a big vortex and I was flying a plane, I don't know much about planes, but I know if I push the stick forward, the houses get bigger, and if I pull it back, the houses get smaller. And I would use that knowledge to try to avoid that thing, you know? Like, I just wouldn't fly in it, right? They're pilots, they can fly. You know, that was the first thing that I knew this was a winner when I saw that one. And, of course, the 757 actually can't go straight across the ocean safely. I mean, you could stop maybe in Gander in Newfoundland and, you know, go up to Greenland, I guess. That's how they used to ferry the fighters over in World War II. And I guess you could if you really wanted to, but a commercial, it wouldn't be done. So I don't know what the heck that thing was doing in there. That's for, you know, continental stuff. You know, what else there? The Lancastria sinking. Well, that happened at 3:50 in the afternoon, I think. So it wasn't at night. So how that event, you know, that raid, the bombing raid, those didn't happen at night in the early war years. That was kind of funny. You had the British guy who was a corporal. Let me reset. You know, what was the corporal doing in a tent at close range in Europe, in a field of some kind of field operation? And you know, if he had lucked into some communication like that, you know, they wouldn't let some corporal handle it. People would come in and take over and throw him out. And yet he's here casually talking about, you know, battle stuff. They would never say stuff like that. They would never mention casualties and stuff over the radio. And it's just ridiculous that somebody wouldn't come in and he wouldn't know about radar, number one, or he would know very little, and he wouldn't talk about it over the air. They'd probably shoot him for doing that. Anyways, that was kind of funny. You know, one thing I liked, you know, the stewardess there, she, you know, usually the women in our films, they serve coffee and sandwiches. Well, she served a fire extinguisher. That was kind of cool. They had the what was it? The guy Hector, the handyman, I think he was. You know, he hung off the landing gear. Well, a plane with landing gear that doesn't rip off or can actually open, well, it's probably going to be around between, I don't know, 150 knots and 200 knots. And he's just hanging off this thing. Well, that's like being in a tornado and hanging onto a piece of metal. Like, he would have just zipped off that landing gear. See you later. What else? They took out the radar out of the plane, and they MacGyvered a couple of ponchos. Well, the radar in a plane probably weighs, I don't know, 80 pounds, something like that. Probably, that's my best guess. They just pitched it out of the plane, and a couple of ponchos, good to go, and they dropped it right on target. Yeah, that was pretty good. You know, that radar was actually quite useless. So there's no way they'd get that to work. You know, with an iPad and a couple of, you know, power sources of some USB power. The most valuable thing in that plane would have been those books, because they would have foretold all kinds of military intelligence. Just throw the books overboard, give them to the Brits, you're good to go. Probably you guys covered the rest. That's all I got for tonight. KT5ZNJ, back to you.
KG5ZNJ, this is K5A&E, your net control for the Afterglow Movie Net tonight. And let's continue on. For our other latecomer, KG5PMN, anything you'd like to share? Go ahead.
Okay, KG5PM, and just sitting here listening to the synopsis of the plot. It sounds like a lot of the writers, the director, or producer, or whoever was kind of in charge of the movie took a lot of liberties without doing a lot of fact-checking. With the radar, and well, they had some radar back there in World War II, but what's the voltage on the aircraft radar? I don't know. We'll just plug a 5-volt USB charger in and make it work. Well, what kind of radio did they have back then? They had radio. Never mind that the modern aircraft works on 118 to 120 something AM. I don't know if the think the radios back then were down like in the 30 megahertz band or something of that nature. And who knows? But they'll work. They can talk to each other. I don't know how bad the co-pilot was shot, but pilots get shot. Yeah, pilots get shot. Well, okay, that'll work. And I thought there was something else, but I can't remember. Send it back to the net, KG5PMN.
KG5PMN, this is K5ANE. Thanks for that. And yeah, definitely the writers should have done more of their homework on some of the plot holes. But again, I don't know. I mean, throwing in the USB battery pack, that's been brought up a lot of times. And yeah, it definitely, I mean, just let them try and figure out how to power it on the ground, you know? I mean, they had electricity at the time, and, you know, you don't have to give them a battery pack necessarily, and there'd be no way that you would really be able to run that radar for even more than a second off the amount of power on that lithium-ion battery there. I mean, that thing sucks so much electricity and energy. I mean, yeah. Anyways, let's continue on. We've been beating that dead horse for quite some time. When it comes to the characterization, I'd like to just throw out there, as far as the military guys not going down to the landing equipment and trying to help out with that, maybe suggesting maybe they're a little scared or something like that. I gotta say, probably gives them a little bit of a break. They were probably up there thinking that they really needed to continue to provide security up there where the rest of the crowd of the plane was, and they probably assumed that that's probably a better, use of their abilities, providing that security up there, than, trying to figure out the hydraulic systems and whatnot. Whereas, the guy that's good at wrenching on things and, having intuitive ideas on fixing things, and the engineer lady that, understands how to solder some wires together and realize, oh, this looks broken, they're probably a little bit better at figuring those kinds of issues out. I do find it was really strange that they had that. I'm not even sure which lady it was that was in the plane that did get sucked out, but yeah, they just didn't reference that ever again, and really strange. And then that Michael character that, they build up, they constantly show him in the first half of the movie, they build him up as this antagonist kind of person, something going on, and then just forget about him, drop him. It doesn't matter. He could have been the person sucked out of the plane, and it wouldn't have made a difference on the plot. It seemed really strange to me that they would bother building up this character and then, doesn't really affect the movie except to give the biggest technical error, in my opinion, later on. It would have been better if he wasn't there, and then he wouldn't have had that USB battery pack that we would all have, stop talking about the battery pack, stop talking about the battery pack. All right. Anyways, let's continue on. In the end, I felt that they did a really good job casting this movie. Despite being this direct-to-video movie, they actually had a few decent, well-ish seen actors and actresses. At the time, there were a lot of faces that I recognized in this movie. Not necessarily the biggest actors themselves, but many of them had been in some bigger productions, both in television and in other movies. And so I thought it was kind of interesting that this movie that I had never even heard of before, had these these other actors and actresses that I've seen elsewhere. And I always like finding these weird, quirky movies like this that I'd never hear about, and yet have more of those kinds of actors. And I did feel that the actors and actresses did a pretty decent job at portraying the characters in this as well. So, I guess we'll go ahead and continue on with one more round. Does that sound right? K5 ICA?
Why, yes. It's anything you want. Anything you want to say. And shake fisting is optional. KE5ICX.
All right. Let's go down the list here from the top then. This is K5A&E, net control for the Afterglow Movie Net. N5BB, last thoughts.
Very good. This is N5BB. Thank you, Kane. Again, somebody, can't remember who, made a comment saying they thought that radios in World War II didn't go above 30 megahertz. That's completely incorrect. And as I mentioned earlier, I used an AM radio built in World War II as my first 2-meter radio back in about 1970, World War II surplus. So these aircraft all had, the Allied aircraft, all had VHF aircraft radios that would operate all the way up to about 150 megahertz. So, no, they were operating VHF. And so the radios could have transmitted. In other words, a modern aircraft, the normal bands they use, which are between 118 and 140 megahertz, they definitely could have operated on the same frequencies as the frequencies used in World War II. So the chance of them happening to be on the right channel was nearly zero, but the radios could have interoperated, let's put it that way. And they were using AM in World War II. It was all AM radio for this kind of stuff. I've got to make another comment about the 757 range. You're wrong. There were a lot of 757s used on overseas flights, especially from Newark and other airports in the East Coast, all over Europe, to Stockholm, to the British Isles, to France, to Madrid, Spain. And there were a number of flights from Reykjavik, Iceland, to DFW Airport on 757s. By the way, the 757, American is retiring because of the coronavirus thing. They're retiring their 757s a year earlier than they initially planned. So a year from now, September of 2021, American expects to have all their 757s taken out of service. What else? I want to hear more about Dunkirk. So there's something they kind of approached in the movie, and then they kind of walked away from it. So during the movie, they acted like when they communicated to the guy on the ground that he said that Dunkirk was a rout where the British actually were able to get the people out. So I don't know if this was a misinterpretation of what happened at Dunkirk. It wasn't clear, but it looked like that the people in the air thought that they were in an alternative universe with different history. But they also, the people in the air, acted like they thought that radar wasn't present in 1940. It was. The British actually developed some radar. It didn't look like our current radar, but they had radar, and they were tracking the Nazi airplanes coming in and everything. So I think that was just poor writing or fanciful writing. You know, when you do one of these kind of movies and you talk about things that occurred in World War II, you can make up and say a lot of stupid things, and nearly all the people listening weren't alive in World War II, and most of the people listening, they haven't heard stories from their parents about World War II. They're too young. So, you know, they can make up a lot of things, and nobody can correct them. That's all I've got. Again, I agree with some other comments. I thought the pacing was about right. I thought the movie was interesting enough to make me want to continue watching it, see what would happen. But when I think about the overall plot, it's that same stupid going back through a wormhole in time plot. And I think they could have done a number of things in this to focus on some characters, some characterization, and that would have made it more interesting. But instead, they cheaped it out, and they did some cheap special effects with all the planes shooting up, all that stuff. So they wasted a lot of time doing that, and the pilot moving around, up and down and around, trying to get around them. And they were able to not have to worry about developing the plot line with characterization and things of that nature, which I think was really sad. For instance, didn't you get an idea that the Cameron, the head flight attendant, didn't you get the idea that she was the ex of the pilot? At one point when they were talking, didn't he refer to her, hey, ex? I got the idea that they had been romantically connected in the past in some way. But they didn't follow through on any of that. There are a lot of things in this movie they could have done, they didn't do. It's possible that they shot those scenes and they cut them out and made it a, whatever it was, a 90-minute TV movie or something. Inside BB. That's all.
N5 BB, this is K5 A&E, net control for the Afterglow Movie Net. Let's continue on here. KG5 BZW, any last minute thoughts?
The KG5 BZW. Yeah, I don't know. Okay, so this is 1940. I kind of want to say that I'm still trying to find some evidence of Allied use of those VHF frequencies. I have found certainly, around the sub 50 megahertz. I found German use of actual UHF communication. So I kind of would think that Allied technology wouldn't be that different. But it's really hard to find. So I'm just kind of wondering, the walkie-talkies were, around 50. I don't know what the size of the UHF equipment was. Clearly, this is something that might be of interest for somebody interested in the history of radio. I'm kind of wondering just how long I'd have to research the... I should have written down exactly the name of N5BB's radio. Maybe he'll come back. Excuse me. Or not. I mean, it's awfully late. I may have to ask him at some point. Excuse me. So, anyway, let me reset. Yeah, that's the one thing. I'm just kind of I don't know, the movie else, it's like the special effects aren't really worth talking about. And of course, you know, in this alternate history of World War II, where, you know, jets somehow existed in not really, the jet engines were definitely being prototyped probably around, I cannot remember. But I know in our history, it's, you know, it's like the Germans only managed to get a few jet aircraft late in the war. And of course all those surface air and whatever missiles, air to air, whatever. So, anyway, there's more to say, but it's late. KG5 ECW.
KG5 BZW, this is K5A&E, net control to the Afterglow Movie Net. And yes, it's definitely getting late. Just a reminder to everybody, the regular timeout timer is in effect right now, so be mindful on the length of your transmission. And let's continue on. WB5OZL, Brenda, closing thoughts.
This is WB5OZL. Well, a 757 holds, what, a couple hundred people, at least? Did they lose a bunch of their people? There was just this one little short cabin with 20 people in it, 25 people. Where were the others? I think that's a big part of the mystery. They lost some folks. A lot of the aviation stuff wasn't really right. They should have done a little research. I'm hearing back channel here, it's 200 people. Okay. Well, where'd the others go? I don't know. And they had this big wide aisle down the middle, which I've never seen in an airliner before. And why didn't they have oxygen masks fall from the ceiling when they needed it? And again, they had this big gaping hole, and I would think more people would go out, but you know, once that happened and everything calmed down, they didn't have stuff being sucked out the hole anymore, which is what you would have. You might not have lost people, but papers and things would have been sucked out. Let's see, what else? The cockpit was all wrong, just the size of it. There was too much extra room in there. Okay, I'm going to quit. WB50ZL.
WB50ZL, this is K5A&E, net control for the Afterglow Movie Net, and we'll continue on here. KE5ICX, closing thoughts.
Thank you, Kane. This is KE5ICX. My only comments are, I didn't mind the special effects. They were pretty good. The thing about it is today you can go ahead and pull up Flight Simulator and create some pretty realistic things, and I think that's where these movies are going these days, particularly the Asylum films, which has lots of movies with aircraft and next week steamliners. So, I don't know. I thought it looked pretty good. It looked realistic, and we've already discussed all the other parts, but I enjoyed it. Music could have been a little better. The audio was good. The visuals were okay. There was something wrong. I agree with everybody else. But this is true on most budget films where you have to show the inside of an aircraft, commercial aircraft with 200 people on board. You can't do it. It's impossible. And that's true even today, especially with television series or the made-for-TV movies. they don't show the entire aircraft because they can't, and they can't afford it. And if they do get the script, let me reset. If they go ahead and get one of the aircraft sets like they do in Hollywood, there is a standing set that's used for films like this. It's a small part, as you would expect. So unless you got the money to go ahead and create, you know, your big army of people in the aircraft going back 3 and 4 sections of the aircraft, it's not going to happen. They're just going to film it and go on. So that's when, you know, TV movies and the like start to creak. You see that, you see the cheapness to it because they don't have the budget. KE5ICX.
KE5ICX, K5A&E, net control for the Afterglow Movie Net. And I don't know if it's just me, but it seemed like the inside of that set is a bit bigger than a normal, you know, 737, 757, but I could be a little bit wrong on that. It just seems like the aisle is just massive or something. Anyways, continuing on, WT9B, last minute notes?
Oh, other than the fact that Brenda stole my comment about the fact that you could, you know, run a truck down the aisle, which I made last night during the watch party. That's all I got to say. WT9B.
WT9B, K5A&E, thanks for that. Let's continue on. KG5ZNJ, Zombies Need Jobs. Frank, any other notes about the movie?
Yeah, it's KG5ZNJ. Yeah, for one, the 262s had some pretty serious guns on them. I can't remember what they were called. I think they were marked 103 or 108. But they were definitely 30 millimeter cannons, and they had 4 of them right in the nose. And one of those rounds, or 2, would have taken care of an airliner very easily. I read a book by a guy who was a pilot of one of those, and he described strafing cars with it, and he was absolutely horrified at the damage that those things could do to, you know, something like a vehicle that, you know, it's not meant for that, but, you know, they were meant to take out bombers with one little press of a trigger and the whole thing would explode, you know, so there's no way that airliner took anything like it took. It took so many shots, and, you know, it would have been like BBs that it was being shot with, and if one of them went in the cockpit, there'd be nothing left. Those things explode, and they're incendiary on top of it. They're not just like bullets, you know, like from a gun. They're cannons. Another thing, they did have air-to-air missiles. The Germans did have them. They weren't very good. I can't remember the names of them, but they, a few planes would shoot these things, and they would aim them high, and they would kind of arc and come down, and they would blow up based on, I think it was a time mechanism. But I believe they never took anything out with them. They didn't work very well. And then they had another one that shot. It was a rocket that shot, and it had a wire attached to it. And I believe the controller could move it around with a little joystick or something like that. I seem to remember something like that. But anyways, they did have them. They didn't work well, and I don't think there's a reported case of them ever taking anything out with them, like in that movie. I think that they made a mess of this movie, and they figured it out midway, and they said, how can we get through this? And I think that they just came up with the idea of, well, let's just do an alternate timeline, because that'll erase any dumb mistakes we made in the script, and I think that's what they did. And I think the wide alleys are just so you can film, so you can squeeze a cameraman in there and get a shot, so it's just a stage thing, a sound stage thing. That's all I got. KG5Z and J, back to you.
KG5ZNJ, K5A&E, net control for the Afterglow Movie Net. And yes, we're still going on, and we got at least one more person here. KG5PMN, James. Any other last-minute notes tonight?
KG5PMN. I don't believe so. Don't know anything else I can say about the movie since I didn't see it, but I'll send it back to the net, KG5PMN.
KG5PMN, K5A&E. Thanks for joining us tonight, and thanks to everybody that came out tonight. I guess I'll go ahead and give my last few comments here. Well, I really just had one more main one to throw out there. N5BB, Bill. Constantly talking about your 2-meter VHF air-to-air antenna. Well, Bill, this is an alternate timeline now that all of us are experiencing, and so, you know, that radio doesn't really exist anymore. It didn't happen, Bill. That was the old timeline. Anyways, yeah, this is the Afterglow Movie Net. Once again, we meet every week at around 10:30ish, pretty much sometime after the regular Skynet meeting ends, and yeah, we talk about interesting sci-fi movies and stuff. What's going to be the movie next week? KE5ICX.
W5FT.
Well, thank you, Kane. And I even wrote up a thing for next week. Listen carefully. Captain Howard looked at the map yet again. Yeah, it's another captain. He was the new master of the RMS Titanic II, a massive ship built to look and perhaps sink like the original. 100 years later, Howard had a whole history to study. He'd seen A Night to Remember, Titanic, and even the time tunnel episode with Michael Rennie as the captain. He observed all the mistakes, but to be sure, he covered all the bases, and he watched the Poseidon Adventure, its remake, Poseidon, the sequel, Beyond the Poseidon Adventure, and even knew Red Button's role line by line. The captain checked the weather radar, weather information, I'll get it right. Giant iceberg located on the route, and tsunami wake probable. Well, that's good enough for me, stated the captain. Let's weigh anchor and head to England. Sure, why not? Asylum Films brings us a future tale from the past, Titanic 2 from 2010, which is the future. September 19th at 10:30 p.m. Be there or drown. KE5ICX.
Alrighty. I guess this pretty much concludes our net. We had a total of 9 people participating, including myself. And once again, show up next time. Same bad place, same bad channel, but hey, great people, great discussions, and terrible movies. K5A&E.
N5, KE5ICX, N5BB.
No, it's not a time travel movie. KE5I6.
Did you realize that there is a ship that's being built called the Titanic II right now? And it was going to be, originally it was set to be launched in 2016, delayed, but currently it's supposedly been delayed till 2022. It's a $500 million project by, the owner will be the Blue Star Line in 5BB.
Red, blue, pick a ship line. Yeah, I knew about that. This thing just kind of bubbled up onto the onto the thing. I actually, to be honest with you, I was just kind of looking around to find out if that ship had been built, had been financed, all that, and then this movie showed up, and I said, yeah, we got to do this movie.
Okay, And if Jay is still there, I'll say it one more time. They used VHF AM radio frequencies, the Allied troops did, during World War II in airplanes. Yes, they did. I've owned and used multiple of those radios. There is a video you can see on YouTube that's titled ARC-1, World War, Roman numeral 2, Vintage Military Radio Receiver Transmitter. You can see it operate. It uses a carbon microphone. I used to own one of those, and it operates from 100 to 156 megahertz. That was just one of several different models of VHF AM radios that were widely used by the Americans during World War II. So I want to reiterate that multiple times. VHF was widely used in World War II. Anyway,